This episode of Salmon Insight was sponsored by Alpha Draft, and you can play and win money there. Play Fantasy League of Legends. They have EULCS, NALCS, LPL, LCK. You can play it all there pretty much, and so there's a link below if you want to go and play there. Okay, it's episode 51 of Summoning Insight, and over in America, it's still July the 4th, and I know you guys are probably thinking to yourself, well, July the 4th is a day to be celebrated, because obviously, listen, it's a day that changed my life in many ways. I'll never forget. One of the most important things I always think back on, I always take 5 minutes out of the day just to reflect on that amazing game where Na'Vi, the Ukrainian Counter-Strike team, beat SK Gaming in the final in 2010 at ESWC. Pretty much an earth-shattering moment, one that should never be forgotten and never discredited or made the butt of a joke or anything. And obviously, how could I forget, the same event, the American Rafa actually won the Quake tournament and kind of established dominance, really went out there on his own as an American and proved that he could do it even amongst the best of Europe. And actually, you know what? It almost slipped my mind there. But I know with Monty here, it would almost be an insult if I didn't mention that on the 4th of July, one of the most important things to ever happen was, of course, when Julyzerg beat Baco in the semi-final of the 2008 Ever OSL. And I think that's all that ever happened on that day. Nothing else important ever happened on that day, and that's the end of that segment. Okay, so how you doing, Monty? How you doing there?
I'm doing great. I definitely am not celebrating freedom in Korea right now.
Okay. Well, to be fair, mate, if whatever you're referring to there, if that hadn't happened, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't be doing this show with me right now. You wouldn't have that sort of fake radio voice. You'd be talking a bit like me, and as a result, there's only room for one of me on this show, Monty. So it'd be me and Leviathan here right now. It'd be a two-man show. Maybe Travis would be sat where you are. Oh, I said it, Monty. Okay. So anyway, so you're doing okay. It's okay in Korea. So our guest this week, here's the thing. He was a part of Alliance, and Alliance had their most dominant season. In fact, the most dominant season of any team in the history of European League of Legends, Monty. They won, I think, what was it? Was it 21-7 or something?
Yeah, they were
21-7. Incredible record, and the key thing was they had a winning record over every single team. And then actually, they even had the perfect game at Worlds. Worlds ended. They didn't get out of the group, so okay, they had some good games there. And then actually, when he left, the team just went to shit. They flopped the IEM. They did a really poor split the next one. They were all over the place. Then he went over to Gambit, and Gambit won that IEM. If you remember, they beat CLG. Then they went into the spring split, and after an initial hard start, they were able to have that 7-game winning streak, and it didn't end the best or whatever. But then he left the team, and that team went to shit as well, and then they're total garbage as well. So yeah, if you're following the track record so far, they were all over the place. It just complete shit, garbage everywhere. Apparently everywhere this guy leaves, it's just an enormous mess he leaves behind. That's basically what I've heard. But his name's Leviathan, former coach of Alliance and Gambit.
I'd like to thank you in advance for destroying Winterfox to increase my team's chance of making it into the CS team. So can you leave soon, please? So that would really be a big help for me.
Hey, no worries, man. I don't think I can make that happen, unfortunately. We want to make it back into LCS. We got a lot of hardworking guys over here. But I actually expected to get trashed harder than that from you, Duncan. So thank you for the kind intro. I appreciate it. Okay.
Real talk. Did you actually just leave that place like an apartment I had about 5 years ago when I just smoked weed all summer? What was going on there, dude?
It was everyone left the house, and it was just me and our analyst downstairs, and we got drunk and played Counter-Strike till 4 a.m. in the morning, and then I had a plane, and I cleaned up a bit. It was worse than that, but yeah, I don't know. I did leave a mess. I had a messy room. I can get you games won in League of Legends, but I'm gonna have a messy room.
So what's worrying me there, Monty, is he thought he was explaining reasonably what happened, but he's actually made it worse than it sounded. When I saw those pictures, I assumed that was a whole split of mess and they just never cleaned up. And he was like, yeah, what can I say? It was a pretty busy weekend, and if I'd have had time, I'd have probably cleaned up before I went out. What the fuck? Okay, that's it. listen, we're all friends here. We're not in person. This isn't awkward, In fact, for you two, I guess Monty and you, Leviathan, you must be at home right now, talking to people over Skype. For you, this is the coaching environment, right? I mean, you two could. I mean, on one hand, Monty could probably make me an initial success and then a crushing failure at the end, to the mockery of his own advice. And you could make me really good for a while, but leave me a total mess and just unable to ever be coached again. So between the two of you, like, I'm wondering what this Skype interaction is going to be like here. So, as always, we like to. I'll let everyone behind the curtain again, as I sometimes do, Monty. So these episodes, as they go on, and not only the episodes, but in my own pride, I like to imagine one day this show will be like a classic, like Seinfeld or the Larry Sanders Show or something, and people will look back and watch DVDs of it. And so I'm actually sort of like, because I know that Monty will be dead from his chronic alcoholism by then, or killed by a TSM fan, or just destitute from owning Renegades. Because one of these factors will take care of Monty, I want to sort of create the behind-the-scenes featurettes right now, live, as we do the show. So just to let people behind the scenes of how the show works, I actually do ask guests usually before they come on the show, like, what regions do you watch? Like, what are you comfortable talking about? And then we kind of like just have them off of that segment. That's why sometimes they leave later, because listen, I don't want anyone to be caught out there and to like in a terrible position, and then everyone just pounces on them and they just get wrecked completely. I mean, I know Monty's different than me. He used to say, like, listen, an individual person's mispositioning is not my business, and if he dies, he dies. As long as Aframu gets out, that's all we care. Whoa! I went into something there. Okay. Anyway, so my point is, we're going to start off in a region that Leviathan's very comfortable with, which is Europe. His most recent region. He was there for 2 splits. So actually, before we get into like modern day stuff, I wanted to ask you some stuff about when you were a coach in Europe, because obviously a team that everyone is wondering about at the moment is the Elements lineup, because it still doesn't seem like there's still something wrong in it. They've tried all these different players. So I'm just going to start with the most brutal question first. If someone doesn't know much about you, they're going to wonder, like, how much did you actually have to do with the dominant season of Elements? Because you must have had something to do with you were the coach. How would you describe your role when you were within Elements?
I brought structure.
Alliance at the time,
like, I didn't sit them down and reteach them all of League of Legends. Like, I didn't, make them rethink how they thought about the entire game. I brought in spreadsheets that would help with pick and ban. So I made some sheets and I sat them down and like referenced LCK pick and bans and the current pick and bans of our region, and just started off with like priority picks. So I think at the time, like for example, Shyvana was a top tier pick. So how a discussion would go would be, what type of bans do we want? What type of bans do they want? And then we'd end up with like a Shyvana first pick, and then we kind of go down the list and talk about what champions fit well with a Shyvana on your team comp. And what that I thought brought a lot to the team. And then we also just, after every scrim, I was recording the VODs, but I would do sections of things that I figured were important topics to discuss. And then after the game, I'd unmute from TeamSpeak, and then we'd run a video on like a synchronized YouTube video website, and I'd run the video and I'd say, okay, this is what you guys did. I think that these adjustments would be correct. What do you guys think? And then we'd talk for about, anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes over a 1 minute clip, and we'd just go into the next game. And then I lead them in with, this next game, let's make a stronger emphasis on focusing on this part of our game. Let's get our warding up. Let's make sure everyone's buying X amount of wards on each base. Let's make sure, our communication. Oh, and that was actually a big thing I felt like I brought to the team. I brought in structured words. We're going to discuss how to siege, and we're going to use the word siege. So when we're going to approach the tower, find the next objective, we're going to siege this tower, not just take this tower, or we're going to dive this tower. And it was more or less just making sure, because they were all really good players, everyone on the original Alliance team, and it was just making sure that they reached their maximum potential through team ways that I was able to introduce them from my experience in both sports and just team in general.
Let me ask you this, because what's interesting about you two combined is that you both were initially remote coaches. Like, I think you didn't go there until the playoffs, right, of LCS, right, Jordan?
Yeah, I was having issues getting my passport, but yeah.
But I mean, that means
the whole season.
Okay, so during the regular split, when they went to 21-7, you were remote coaching. Monty was obviously remote coaching from Korea for 2 splits. 3 technically, 3 splits actually.
Sure.
So I wanted to ask Jordan's take on this, because obviously one of the main topics of criticism Monte got was the idea that through remote coaching, you can't do enough. Like, you need to get in there, deal with communication issues, that you can't just give the... Essentially, people kind of made it sound like you could only be an analyst online. Now, listen, I know... Obviously, it is going to be more immersive to be a coach in person. Like, I know Monty said it was quite easy for him. He used to just come on Skype and he'd be like, Siva, her name, Siva, the female. She has a headband, the boomerang. You get that comp, you're donezo. That's all you need. He even used to use the phrase donezo. I think it rubbed off on some of the players. So what did you think, Leviathan? What's the remote coaching thing like?
Are you asking if it's like better than in-house coaching?
Just what was it like for you? I mean, how does it work? Because obviously you were very successful doing it, whereas people implied like maybe it doesn't work or it's not good enough,
Honestly, it felt like playing a game. Like, I would just, before I would wake up and play some League of Legends, or I'd wake up and play this, but then I had to wake up and play Analyst, So I'd throw on my computer, I'd do a couple hours of prep, figure out what we went over the day before, what we were going to go over today. And then it was like you hop on TeamSpeak, you watch them spectate, and you just got to try to find the correct strategical adjustments. And I guess the thing that's different from in-house coaching is that I didn't really touch on what the players' lives are like outside of the game, because you end up with personal conflicts between certain players. Some teams create little cliques where these three people will be friends with each other, and then these other two guys will be their buddies. So even though they clock in for scrims or work and they got to work as 5, as soon as the scrim is done, they'll go do something with only that person for the entire month or something like that. And
I mean, in Monty's team, he even had one guy who used to just go off on his own and sit on like a balcony and think about space and Pink Floyd and time into a fractal nature. Just something I noticed, thinking about that. So
you remind me a lot of him, actually. Thorin.
Really? Okay. It's probably the light hair color and the fact that I would be a beast Eddie carry as well. So yeah, and the fact that Doublelift also lost trust with me a few splits ago. So, but no, yeah, continue, Leviathan. Like what could you actually get a lot of the coach's job done online? Like if you'd have never been able to go there at all, not for playoffs until Worlds, could you really have coached the whole way? Were there things in person that you think had to be done?
For which area? Like, could you repeat that question?
Alliance.
Alliance. You're asking if there was something that could have done extra in person?
No, I'm asking your experience as the coach remotely. Obviously, you had a lot of success. Like,
yeah. What do you think on the topic? One of the things that's great about, I guess, remote coaching is that I'm just seeing the game for the game, and adjustments are easily identified. Whereas I think even when you're in the house, it's easy to get a bias. Like I'm already having a tough time trying to make decisions that are best for the team because it's really easy to get like a personal relationship with a person. I think that's like an aspect of coaching that you need to train to be able to make the decision that's like best for business rather than just the people that you talk to. Whereas when I'm online, it's just like, oh, these are my 5 players. I only speak to them during coaching hours, so I can really have just this unbiased back opinion. If I want someone to make a certain adjustment one way, it's really easy to just go, hey, you need to do this better, you need to do that better. Just to like distance yourself from the players. But then if the team is having issues, like people hate each other, people are having a difficult time working with each other, or you need to, maybe build team morale or do some sort of group activities. I think that's the edge that comes with, in-house coaching, and the coach needs to be in the house for that. But as far as gameplay goes or strategy goes, you can do it all remotely. Like when we're in scrims, I'm just sitting at my computer here the same way I'd be sitting at my computer in Canada. The only thing that I guess would be an advantage is being able to sit in the same room and speak when watching the replay on a projector. I was doing the same thing with like a synchronized YouTube video service. So
okay, Monty, real talk. I've noticed every time you ever address the issue of like the end times in CLG, when you had to do the remote coaching, you always kind of like actually placate people who think it's like you can't do a good job over remote coaching. You're always like, yeah, like I should have been in there in the house, and it was all about the personality issues and stuff. You always make it sound like that, mainly because the team fucking did fail. So you can't be like, listen, I was a fucking awesome coach. The players all suck dick. Didn't even listen to me. Like if they'd done what I said, maybe they just, like I realize you can't go that hard, but you must be able to be effective to a degree online, right?
Sure, but it depends on what the actual issues with the teams are. I think that in terms of what Jordan's saying, it's absolutely true that when it doesn't change. Like when I was in the house with CLG, I didn't do anything different during scrims. I was literally on a headset with those guys I was on a wireless headset walking around the room, talking to them and looking over their shoulders, which is what I was doing while I was watching 5 private streams at once during the scrims. There's literally no difference, That was not something that changed. But at the time, I think that what CLG needed was not that thing, and I couldn't provide the thing that they actually needed because I wasn't there.
See, when Monty says that, does it conjure up a picture for you, Leviathan, like him in a sharp, nice, new couturied sort of blue shirt, just walking around, cup of coffee in one hand, wireless headset on, watching this bank of screens in front of him as numbers and images flash up, and he's like, sell, low, like, carry it in.
I think CLG had like a YouTube or video series where they showcase what Monty was doing with them in Korea, and I think it was good. Like I believe you took them to some sort of event one time as a group.
Oh yeah, I mean I tried. Yeah, we went to
StarCraft, right?
Yeah, the Pro League finals.
And I wasn't the coach of CLG at the time, but it seemed like maybe bonding was an issue, or
yes, it was.
Yeah. Right, and when you take the players out of the game, and like I think we went and saw TED 2 the other day, and you can see how it just brings the players together, So if he thinks that the issues in the team weren't gameplay related, but were like cohesion related, I think he was making the correct moves there. Like I don't know, I think it was just like the most insanely difficult job anyone could ever have, coaching in esports, coaching CLG.
Sure. I mean, the problem there as well, like Jordan, is maybe you have similar tastes. Maybe you relate to the people on your team. Like I'm imagining Monty, if he'd have thought of an idea like that when he'd been there in person, he'd be like, yeah, good idea. Take them out. Show them a flick. And then he'd take them out and they'd be like, I'm imagining Double F being forced to sit through like the Treasure of the Sierra Madras. And he's like, what the fuck is it? Is it in color? What is this? What is this?
At least we'd be able to say badges. We don't need no stinking badges. And then he would understand.
Okay. I don't think he understood any of your references, Monty. I still think one of my all-time great underappreciated tweets was when all that Art of War shit was going on, and I just did that tweet like, Double F was probably wondering why Monty kept referring to that Bone Thugs in a Harmony album, because it's like literally an album called The Art of War, and he's like, I keep listening to it, I can't figure out what it's got to do with League of Legends, He's like, yep, coach, I certainly studied that all weekend. So here's a question, Leviathan.
Yeah.
On the topic of like personal differences and all that sort of stuff, do you think you have a natural aptitude for that? Is that difficult to do, to manage the personality side of the game outside of just tactics and stuff like that?
It's definitely new to me. I'm not polished at it, but I can read a person kind of well. It's just I'm not perfect when it comes to figuring out what a person either needs to hear, or what it takes for someone to click.
When you say you can read them really well, are you just like, yep, this another person who just completely hates me, this guy over here he's disgusted by me, and this guy over here will probably never respect me? Like, oh, okay.
Like there's personality.
You have a talent for that, okay.
Like some people are heavily emotional. Like when they lose a game of solo queue, they'll borderline cry, and then another guy can just queue 25 games in a row and not let it influence them. And those people tend to think differently,
Okay.
And it's you got to really like connect with the person, and you try to like you have to word sentences a certain way to get through to them. And I'm not too experienced with being able to connect with my players, but I'm working on it. I'm trying to make sure everyone's comfortable in the environment, and that we all can get to like one solid game plan and work together towards something.
Can I ask you a harsh question, Monty? As I'm even saying that right now, like I'm going to do it anyway. Yeah,
Wait,
can I please do it?
Ask permission for this?
So anyway, no. What I wanted to ask basically was, I get an underlying sense, I don't know how much you want to about this publicly, but that you actually don't entirely buy into kind of like a new school, modern day kind of coaching approach where you try to like, everyone has to be comfortable and everyone has to be friends and everyone has to get along. I get the sense that there's like a part of you is like, thinks that like people should kind of take up responsibility for themselves to a degree, or if someone can't like handle playing it, maybe you should get a replacement. What do you think on this? Am I reading too much into this?
I mean, I think that it's important for the players to get along, but I also think at the end of the day, you want to have a harmonious environment, but it's a sports team, and you need to get rid of people that aren't working or that aren't living up to the expectations of the team. So I guess I have a less kid gloves approach, we'll put it that way.
Okay. Leviathan, I built it up really great there for you. I'd said about how in Alliance, you went 21-8, and it was the most dominating team season ever. But what I must obviously ask you, right, is that the problem with that season is anyone else who had a great season like that, like Charlie, when Cloud9 had really good splits, people have no problem giving the coach a lot of credit, and they're like, oh, he must have done a lot of work and did really good pick and ban and analysis. But in your case, I think the main reason why people don't know how much credit to give you is there's a stigma around Alliance and Elements, is that it's just Froggen's team, and that basically if you're in that team, like, you answer to Froggen, and like also like so Froggen, how are we gonna play this game now? What do you think? How would you address that?
So everyone thinks that the people in Alliance were uncoachable, but they were always open to my methods. When I wanted to break something down a certain way and come to an agreement, they were all, working with me. Sure, some people on the team had a louder voice than others. Nif, if he wanted to...
He used to just throw tantrums, didn't he? He'd be like, listen, it's fucking my way or the highway. Like, you get the Jan in, listen, Froggen, you're playing Origen in this game. Shut the fuck up, sit in the corner. This is called Nif's team. Like, yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay.
The Tabs, Nif, and I guess we'll classify Tabs and Nif. They're just kind of like the quiet guys. Okay. Like they would chime in with their opinion. Like, I think Corky is good, something like that. and then you had Wickd and Froggen, who were very adamant on playing the game, or I guess not adamant on playing the game a certain way, but they were very vocal with expressing how they felt the game should be played.
Okay.
So conversations involving Wickd or Froggen would generally take longer than others, and Shook kind of just went with the flow. He would chime in and every now and then with what he thinks is good in the meta, or what adjustments we need to make, but he generally spoke very quiet. But it was actually a good mix of like two leaders in Wickd and Froggen speaking their mind and informing us on what they want to do, and then everyone else just kind of, he said, I think I agree with this, I don't agree with this, and generally we were all on the same page, which is actually really nice. Like, after coaching Gambit and now spending some time at Winterfox, I think Alliance was the team that could come to the general conclusion and agree the most of the teams I've coached so far.
Like, I realize obviously Alliance were winning most of their games, and so when you win games, I mean, you're not making that many poor decisions, and a lot of things are going well anyway. So with that caveat said, after you left Alliance and they became Elements, when we talked to Nif on the episode he came on, he kind of made it sound more in line with what I was describing more about the stigma of what the team was like before. Like, he didn't say it in as many words, but as he would describe, he'd be like, yeah, sometimes, like, I guess I didn't want to pick that champion, but like, it was picked as a flex pick, and then at the end I would just have to play. It was
Worlds, though.
No, but it was making it sound like basically Froggen and Wickd kind of just pick what they're going to pick, and then other people had to adapt to them to a degree. Is there anything to this?
Yeah, I'd like to jump back a second, though. We did make a lot of adjustments in the first 5 weeks. If you remember, I think 5 weeks, I'm not sure the exact number, but if you looked at our draft, we ended up playing nearly the exact same comps, the 2 games in the week, but every week our comp would change drastically. So even though we were all winning and all agreeing, we were still all agreeing on something that was almost entirely new. As far as the whole flex pick situation goes, yeah, Wickd spoke louder than Nif, and maybe Nif should have said, no, I actually can't play Alistar. But we spent like 65 minutes in a custom. It was Alistar against Alistar, Wickd teaching Nif how to combo, because Nif felt like that was one of the headbutt pulverize combo, felt like that was one of his weakest aspects. And then after 65 minutes of training it, the Nif felt like it was comfortable enough for him to pick, and then I guess after the fact he decided it's not what he wanted to pick, and that's fine. Hindsight's 20/20. But yeah, he was a quiet dude, and when we think Alistar support is a top pick in the meta, and if you think you can't play it, you need to speak louder about it, because I don't know, he was really comfortable with picking it before the draft.
Come on, man. Surely if you're the coach, you're involved in that as well in some way. Like, listen, if Wickd goes, yeah, I can play fucking... What would even be like... I could play Soraka jungle. Like, you wouldn't just let him pick it for no reason, would you? Surely you have a say in, like, oh... So basically, in these cases, Nif convinced you that...
Jungle, though.
Okay. But you're saying he only had played this for like 60 minutes or something?
No. I'm saying that he has experience playing Alistar.
Okay.
And then before a match, we were like, okay, Alistar isn't ready. Well, do you think a custom game to train the specific aspect of Alistar you're not comfortable on to be good? We ended up, doing it, and then he felt after the training that it was worth to be.
Okay,
played.
so listen.
Again, that was during a time when I was not in comms with the team.
But what I'm asking is, if the player says he can play it, but actually maybe if you looked at it, you might be able to see that he's not capable. Can you get to override that, or does the player just get to pick it? That's what I'm kind of asking. Like if Nif's like, yeah, nah,
We're in
I'm
Alliance.
Dynamite on Zillion, man. Just let me play that. I'll carry the game.
Oh, Zillion.
Triggered you?
Yeah.
PTSD?
Oh no. I don't know. That's a tough one. Like I can't exactly remember how it goes, but I remembered that was like my second coaching job, and I know what my strong points are, and my strong points weren't always in determining whether a player was mechanically or strategically competent on playing a specific champion.
That explains Wickd. You just explained Wickd right there.
No,
Well done. Okay.
I want to set this straight. I did not approve of the Kale pick. I don't understand.
This is like a
Kale
court
came
proceeding
from.
like that. Let the record bear witness.
Yeah.
I did not agree with the Kale
We
picks.
scrimmed maybe 3. Like, okay, I love Wicked. Like, you're my buddy. But those Kale picks came out of left field for me. After the first time, we had like a discussion that we weren't going to pick Kale again. And then he locked it in the Kaboom game when Rumble was open. He had like 50 scrim games on Rumble. He was beating Samsung teams with his Rumble, and we pulled out this Kale pick. I don't know. Okay, I've said enough about that.
Good old Kale, eh? Good old Wicked with his picks, Monty, just picking out those things that they've never played before.
Yeah, I mean...
At World Championship, in the match to decide if you go through, or, well, get to the tiebreaker or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I can commiserate with you, Leviathan. After the Korean boot camp, we hadn't practiced Lucian or Zillion at all, and then I start watching some playoff games, and there were Lucian and Zillion champions that we hadn't practiced, and that I had expressly told them not to pick.
I mean, I'm not in there on comms, right? I mean, I can talk about them before the game, talk about pools. If this draft happens, we can go in this area, and then you're just kind of have to sit there and watch.
And
now
be sad.
Yeah, but now that coaches are in comms,
Yes, obviously that situation doesn't really occur anymore, but still,
thankfully,
it's sad that this was a reality that
I mean,
people had to live through.
As a connoisseur of food and cooking, Monty, as you know I am, I can actually tell you that if you don't know what you're doing and you just start willy-nilly throwing in ingredients like kale, you're going to end up with something that's going to have a pretty shitty aftertaste. Like, I'm just telling you, don't do it, kids. Like, you got to be... Oh, don't try this at home, the kale picks.
Go by the book.
Exactly. So, just rewind a second to the Alliance period again. I want to ask another question about Alliance, which is... Actually, let me ask Monty this first. So even when Alliance won that split in dominating fashion, like I say, only losing 7 games, even as you won the split, I remember people still were like actually very critical of Alliance, and they were like, oh, this team has like all these shot calling problems, and you could see as soon as it got to the mid game, it was like, even if there was big advantages, like, well, it could take them longer to close, or they had issues closing, or they would take weird fights, or they would just never take fights at periods in time. Monty, do you remember this area in time? Can you articulate it better than me? What do you think of that Alliance team at that point in time? Because they obviously had some very, very defined style, right?
I mean, I guess we could say that. I also think that at the time Europe was not doing so great in general. I just don't think that there were a lot of rivals to them at the time. It was, of course, before there was a lot of this new rookie talent that ended up coming up that we're seeing right now. I mean, Europe wasn't so great last season either, but that was because there was like too many rookies, a lot of the old talent left, and like Origen was still in Challenger, and there were some other issues there. But I'm trying to think back. I mean, mostly I just remember Alliance like looking good, but none of the other teams really stepping up either. So
we like to take 3 inhibitors on the way to our victory. We basically would figure out what is the highest percentage objective for us to take next, the lowest amount of risk. Okay. And when we fell behind, we would look for the trade-off objective, or look for the catch to bring us back into the game when we're in a power trough. Try to find the catch. Like I remember one specific catch was on against SK. Someone face checked a blue buff, and that gave us the win when we were just holding on for almost the entire game. So I think a lot of it was basically just we knew how to have a game plan, and the other teams in Europe didn't know how to play a flawless game, and we knew how to capitalize on the smallest mistake and turn it into a win.
How much of that style came from Froggen? Because again, everyone's discussion about all versions of Alliance and Elements is always the idea is that Froggen decides, well, I'm personally going to play like this, so everyone has to play like this, and everyone has to... the stereotype is everyone has to pick a late scaling champion and just survive to the late game, and we're not going to kill anyone, we're just going to farm, and then we're going to close the game.
That was never like any words that came out of Froggen's mouth. Froggen just wanted to pick what champions were the best, wanted to find what were the most efficient ways to play the champions as 5 to win the game. And I don't know, sure, maybe most of the time we decided on more mid to late game compositions, but it's not like Froggen's like, that's the only way to play the game, you know? Like, I guess, I don't know how to elaborate more than that. Like, it never at any point was Froggen like, yeah, we're just going to take it to late. Like, I don't think Froggen's ever said that.
So you mentioned there, like some of the world's prep, etc. Now, aside from the Kaboom game, everyone remembers the perfect game against Najin, White Shield. But what people maybe forget is the dress rehearsal for the perfect game, where, you know, the first sort of segments, everyone was following the lines, they were in position, and then suddenly, after this big lead, you just lost the whole game. Do you remember what happened in that particular game? Because this seemed like
Are we talking about Game 1 against Najin?
Yeah, this seemed like the perfect example of where the team just refused to take any risk whatsoever, even when ahead.
I think Gorilla just outclassed NIF. Like, I don't remember the game exactly. I haven't watched it since, you know, I've been with Alliance, but I remember Gorilla just being the most insane support player that I had seen until that time. And if I remember correctly, we had a small lead or were competitive in the game, and then Gorilla just made big play after big play and then just shut us out.
I mean, you guys turned it around, though, because then you perfect gamed them. So, I mean, in terms of performances, like, that was a pretty big differential because Shook really stepped up, obviously.
Shook camped top, and, well, he popped, he went into one lane, got a kill, base, went into another lane, got a kill, base, went into another lane, went to the last lane, got a kill, and then returned top to put another kill on the Wicked. So he just got 4 successful ganks off in a row, and with that sort of lead, and with how polished that team was, figuring out what the next objective was, it just gave Najin no opportunity. Like, they didn't have a chance outside of laning phase. They just got smashed in lane so hard. Like, they didn't have anything, especially with our mid-game centric comp with a Federalia.
Leviathan, real talk. Yeah. If Alliance wins that game against Kaboom and they go into a tiebreaker against Cloud9 and Najin White Shield, what do you think happens?
We were riding such a high after beating Najin that, you know, I think we could win games of League of Legends. Like, I'm not going to say...
Whoa, calm down there. The trash talk is just too much here. Be reasonable, man. You know, show some respect, okay?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the thing is, we're so inconsistent.
What world is this dude? Like, fucking amazing. It's like, yeah, I should have been in the final. I almost would have won worlds. And you're just like, I think we maybe possibly could have won a game. And if we had, that might have spurred us to get into the next round where that could have been it. Yeah, thank you.
Well, like, we looked like we drafted, like, I drafted... I guess, well, I wasn't in comms, so I had drawn up such a poor draft in their first game against Cloud9. Like, our comp was good on paper. Like, we had winning matchup in mid, we had the right jungle matchup that we wanted. You know, we had a good winning top matchup. But then when the game played through, if we ever fell behind, we would just lose. We had like a Xerath comp, and we, like, reflecting on it, I think that our team was, you know, either at world stage we either played really well and perfect game the team, or we could have like a Cloud9 game 1 game where we just, you know, don't even show up, or where if we make the smallest mistake, it makes the game impossible to come back from. So I don't know. I think the team was good enough to win games of League of Legends. We could have made maybe round of 8, round of 4. Like, we were splitting games with Samsung Blue, and then I think we were winning like 10 or 15% of our games against White, which was like the highest out of the people at the boot camp, except for maybe TSM. I don't know if TSM.
Out of how many games? 10 out of how many?
Well, no, 10%.
Oh,
10%.
right. 10%.
Yeah,
okay.
Which I think was the highest. Like, no one in the boot camp was beating White at all. Okay. So that gave me like a, you know, false hope that if we can beat them 10 or 15% of the time, maybe we could take a couple of games off them in a best of 5. But yeah, I don't know. It was what it was.
Monty, I believe you're not a fan of Xerath picks on Froggen. Is this accurate, sir?
I mean, I'm a long-standing Xerath critic in general, so take what I say with a grain of salt around that. But yes, I was not at the time.
What do you think the problem with the champion is? Like, I mean, so many great players have tried to pick it, but
extremely vulnerable in the laning phase, reliant on an ultimate that is extremely difficult to hit. Just very high risk for, I would say, medium reward. Not even like the best poking champion in the game. So.
Leviathan, what did Alliance know that we didn't know as observers? Like, what were you seeing in scrims? Because not only in your era did he pick Xerath, but obviously at the dreadful IEM that he had at San Jose, he was still picking it all the time. Like, I mean, what was the idea of having it on Froggen, this champion?
He just plays it well. He plays a good Xerath. it does damage. Like, all of his moves are AoE, so it makes sense on why people would think Xerath is a good champ. We just played Xerath because we thought he was powerful. I don't really know how much else to elaborate on that, besides that I think Syndra was a very, very strong pick at the time on that patch, and Froggen was just not capable of playing it. Whenever he would take trades in lane on Syndra, he would always come up behind in the trade, and his positioning and shot calling just weren't up to Froggen standards in that champion. So I think it hindered us a lot that we weren't able to play like the strongest mid pick in the tournament on one of our best players. But as far as Xerath goes, I mean, Xerath just has all AoE moves, does a bunch of damage, so we thought he was a good pick at the time.
As a former coach of Froggen's, I've noticed one of the ways people explain away the summer split and how dominant it was, and even the spring split where Froggen was still doing very well, even though Alliance initially had their problems, is they just say like, oh, I guess it's just because the meta was just all farming champions, and people were just only playing these different champions, blah, blah, blah. Even though actually at the end of the summer split was when stuff like Zed all came back again for people like Goon, rather, obviously. So there were assassins there, but people explain it away as if, oh, that was just the meta, and so that suited Froggen's style, the farm up style, the play safe and just trade the enemy down or just poke him out and just try and get the extra CS. As his coach, like, how would you describe this aspect of him as a player? Like, is he a meta-dependent player, do you think? Does that account for some of the problems in this year, do you think?
I think he shines better on the support mages than he does on the assassins. I haven't seen him play Zed in a really long time, but from my memory, his Zed was okay, like playable. It wasn't going to carry the game like some of the Zeds you can see played in the professional play, but it was playable. I mean, it's Froggen. Like he likes to farm. He plays really well when he has lots of farm, and yeah, I guess that's fair. Froggen plays a really good Orianna. He plays strong support mages. Yeah, that's fair.
Monty, obviously last split was dog shit for the Elements team, and this split isn't going very well either. Ignoring the history of Froggen, if you didn't know Froggen as a player, you'd only seen from the spring split onwards to now, what would you think of this mid laner now? Not a top player?
I mean, statistically, he's still doing quite well, so it's not that he's dealing a lot of damage. I mean, if we let's just take a look at his stats this season, because they're actually pretty good. Let me go back. I haven't looked at the updated stats recently, but I was just checking this out the other day because I was curious how Froggen was doing, and he had one of the highest damage per minutes in the league. He's still at number 4 behind Expeke, Fibivin, and Pepinero. Overall, he's doing 36.2% of his team's damage at the moment. So, I mean, he's definitely not having a bad season in terms of how hard he's carrying this Elements team. And they're starting to turn it around a little bit also.
Because Monty, that again, even if you said those stats, people will just use this logic of like, oh, well, that's just because he never takes a chance and he just pokes you and he just hugs his tower and he just only gets CS.
Well, then the rest of his team must be doing pretty shit because he's still doing 36+% of his team's damage, which is actually, in my mind, probably a problem. That means that if you're doing that much damage as one player, it means you have a really imbalanced team.
Leviathan, you said you've been watching Europe this season. Just in 2015, what do you think of Froggen's Elements and Froggen as a player within it now? Contrasted against the one you had before. Is he having problems as an individual player, do you think?
I don't think the problems from Elements come from Froggen. Like, when I watch Elements play, I'm not sitting down and trying to break down how each individual player plays. It's not my job. My job is to figure out how they play as a team. Okay. I think their original support Promiscuous was just... he was not good at League of Legends. He just made...
Yeah, I don't even know where they dug that guy up.
No, I was watching some of the scrims that they had before the season with Promiscuous, and the dude he loved Janna, but I guess he thought it was his best champion, but he made a very large amount of basic Janna errors. Like, he would never fully channel his tornadoes or his monsoons. He would often flash monsoon and then immediately die with no impact.
Oh god, no! I hate players that do that.
Yeah, and it was just very frustrating to watch him play. As far as Tabs goes, I think Tabs is a good AD carry. I think with his when he reunites with Nif, or while they'll continue to grow together, I think that could become a top 4 bottom lane, but they just need time. I think Froggen still plays a very good game of League of Legends. And then I think it's just a matter of Dexter and JWoww and the whole team just kind of coming together. I think that they draft really greedy, though. For being a new team, they often draft these very intricate, very difficult to play compositions when they don't have a lot of experience playing together, when they should really just find champions that are easier to play or find strategies that are easier to execute and then ride off of that. Because they've only, they shake up their roster so much that I don't think that they could possibly have the synergy able to pull off these, high skill comps in the time that they've had to train.
The one good thing that Promiscu guy did actually provide, though, was a couple of sick Reddit memes. Like, one of my favorites was where they just made his name Promiscu. that was really good. And then the other great one was when he left the team and they got Nif back. Someone just posted something like, "Who is this Nif guy? Is he some really talented up-and-coming player that Tabs has been duoing with?"
Oh, my goodness.
Because that's obviously apparently how they just got that other guy into the team, like just some dude that Nif was queuing with.
That was a rumor. Tabs ended up tweeting something like, "Where the hell did people think that I groomed this guy and picked this guy from? He was just a support that they considered was good. It wasn't like he was
fair
Tabs
enough.
is." Yeah. But yeah, that rumor was around.
But no, the interesting thing about the Froggen issue is he obviously isn't playing at his peak level. I don't think that's really debatable. But I do think that people they've gone too far on the circle jerk against the idea that he's like total trash now. Because one of the interesting things I've always thought about Froggen's style, even when it was at its peak, is that it is just like a super controlled style. And so as a result, if you notice, go to any of my interviews where I talk to really good mid laners, and it's not just for like trying to appease fans that they never go in on Froggen. And even when he's doing badly, they're never like, maybe he's not that good or he's only good on farm champion. What they tend to do instead is they describe it more like it's actually difficult to even describe what he's good at and how you're supposed to beat that. Like, it reminds me of in poker. If you play someone who's a poker player and he's a really, really good defensive poker player who only plays like very calculated moves, it's actually incredibly frustrating to play, because what happens is you're trying to get this guy to like play hands with you and trying to get him to like raise you when you've got good hands, and instead he's just folding all the time. He's folding in all the good situations where you've got, and so as a result, to get him to play more, you're having to play like looser and play even worse hands. And then eventually when you get him into a hand and he makes some bets, it turns out he's got like a slightly better hand than you, and you lose, and you're like, fuck, I've just spent ages trying to set that up. That's like what it's like trying to lane against Froggen. He's just he's gonna get those tiny little edges on you over and over. And here's the key thing, because he's not going to try and go for 1v1 kills, you're going to go through the whole game thinking like, well, we'll wait for an opportunity where my champion, which is better than his in laning, could, in terms of fighting, can get a kill. It's not going to get any, and at the end of the laning phase, you're going to be like, fuck, and now he's up like 30 CS and nothing happened. But that's like 2 kills right there he just got without ever having to take a chance. I mean, obviously I'm waxing lyrical right now, Leviathan. I've got into my my whole thing here. But what do you think on this, Leviathan?
It's a way to play. There are the aggressive players. There are the more control players, I like to call it. And yeah, it is really frustrating to play against, because he's never going to give you an opportunity to take anything from him. He's going to get his creeps. He's going to play the lane in a way that if assuming that, let's give it like a game example. Let's say you're playing an early game mid laner, or like a lane bully mid laner against Froggen, who's on a scaling champion. He's not going to give you any of those opportunities to kill him or take a huge lead. And then by the time the clock hits 20-30 minutes, his champion has the items that it needs, and he's just going to be more relevant with you in the late game. And I think that's, if Froggen's able to, if the meta and both the draft enables Froggen to pick that scaling champ against the early game champ and is able to get on a laning phase, and he's gonna win 9 times out of 10, right? Then that's just how he is. He's not flashing on top of people trying to kill him, but he's getting his money. Do you
have any insights, Monty?
I mean, I think you guys are covering it, so
okay.
Yeah.
Because I have an interesting question for Monty to make it a more generalized topic. So just take the Froggen style outside of the player of Froggen. I actually thought a really interesting answer that I got from Incarnation in the interview I did for him for Recall for HGC eSports over on their YouTube channel, available now, is pay me. So anyway, well, I actually really liked an answer he gave where I asked him about Froggen's style. And again, being as we all think of Incarnation as like this aggressive assassin player, and usually those players are the ones that everyone expects would secretly think like, oh, Froggen's a pussy, he just plays this lame style, and like if he ever played proper, you know, in the real assassin style of mid lane, we'd wreck this guy. And those guys, by the way, are the guys who never shot on Froggen. What's funny is he actually said that he actually thinks if you play the Bjergsen assassin aggressive style and you play the Froggen style, and they were both played at almost like a perfect level, he actually thinks that against each other, actually the Froggen style would be slightly better than the Bjergsen just against each other, because there wouldn't be any opportunities for the other guy to get the kills, etc. He couldn't do the kind of snowball approach he wants. And what's funny is I wanted to actually springboard off that, Monty, to ask you a question in this way, which is an interesting thing I've noticed. One of the reasons why I feel like fans in the West are always going to be a little bit let down when Bjergsen goes to those worlds and international tournaments is because his style of like playing mid lane essentially predicated upon you being better than the opponent. You have to be better than him because you're trying to sort of make small edges into big edges, into bigger edges, and totally shit on him and take over the whole game. Now the problem is when you go to the international tournament, you're going to be playing against Dade, or you're going to be playing against Pawn, or you're going to be playing against Faker, people who do all that shit, but they're better than you at it. So actually, if anything, you're going to get in their world, you know.
Yeah, his style, I think when Bjergsen's at his best is when he does play a very aggressive style in the laning phase like Faker does, and he has. I mean, we've seen it. TSM knows what the style is. You have your jungler be a supportive player around Bjergsen, getting that vision, making sure that he can get into an advantage so that he can take over the game, which is how SK Telecom plays League of Legends. It's how they do it. I mean, you see like double pink wards on either side, like one pink ward on each side of mid lane so that Faker can play aggressively. And you're right, though. That is the problem comes when you actually have to play against somebody who's better than you. And then it falls apart.
I actually liked, I think it was in the SKT Spanu game last night. Faker thought someone was mid, so he was probably on comms like, guys, come check mid. And I see jungler come walk up to top side, check the brushes, and then his support comes up and checks the bottom side and checks like, okay, yeah, there's a guy here. Faker's like, okay, get rid of him so I can 1v1. Like,
yeah, it happens all the time in SKT's games.
Yeah, and they're just trying to protect their mid laner. And I think when you play a punishing style, you have to be better than your opponent. Like you have to be able to identify the mistakes that they're making, know the play that's gonna give you the small advantage off the mistake that they made. And yeah, if you go up against a mid laner who's an equal or better skill than you, you're not gonna be able to find those edges, and some of your gameplay is gonna be taken away from it.
And it's not a problem for TSM to play that way. By all means, please build around your superstar player. The problem with TSM is there is no other carry on that team. There's no
Keith. What about Keith?
Whatever. Keith McBrief, man.
Whatever.
Anyway, so I get dragged off it again there a second. Okay,
Yeah.
let me ask you this, Leviathan. So no one can figure out what the solution to the Elements thing is. They've tried changing all these different players. They have all these problems. If you were the coach of Elements now, what would be like? Is there a simple little tweak you could make that could at least turn things in the right way? Is there something that you think they're maybe missing out on?
I mean, I don't see the back end. I don't know who the coach is. Okay, Nif was the coach. I spoke a bit to Elements before this current split started about maybe working in some capacity with the team.
Classic. So first of all, they were like, Tabs, please come back. We used to be good when you were there. Then they were like, who else? That Leviathan guy, I remember seeing him around the house. Get him back. I need him back now. Wicked, are you still relevant? No, sorry. Fuck you, you shit anyway. The terrible builds. Okay. Yeah, okay.
That didn't work though, because what ended up happening was Nif would end up after the game, Nif would drag all the players away from the computer to do replay on a computer, okay. And then they'd sit down on the computer, and I'd be like, "Hey guys, this is the kind of things that I saw and the adjustments that I think we can make." And then it was just the same things Nif were saying, so they didn't see the value of me, and we kind of cut that off after a couple days, but that was fine. But yeah, I think one of the things that they need to figure out is just establishing a game plan around the strengths of their players. Finding what each player is best at, what strategy they like to play, and then just finding the 2 or 3 team compositions that play to their strengths, and just kind of say fuck the meta. and try to keep it simple for the first couple weeks, because like they change their roster so much. Every time you change out a player, you know it gets to a certain point once you played with someone for so long that you can kind of read their mind and know what they're about to do before they even do it. And once you start getting into these intricate team comps, are like, okay, you need to land, like each player needs to land all of their moves, and we need to coordinate this stuff correctly. And we can't split up into these different chokes, because if 3 people go this way and 2 people go that way, then we just automatically lose whatever team fight's about to happen. Just keep it simple, and then try to get a team identity and grow from there. And just make sure someone on the back end is just feeding them the information that they need to come up with these decisions.
Monty, are you ready for your dream? Imagine that you got to coach Froggen. Imagine that, eh? Not Link, Froggen, mate. Imagine you got to be the coach of this Elements team now. What do you see as the problems they have?
I mean, they are, to be fair to Elements, they are starting to turn their matches around a little bit.
When you say they're starting to turn it around, it sounds like turning a fucking battle cruiser, mate. It takes like 4 weeks to do that. You're like,
it does. It takes time.
Okay.
It does. It does. It takes time.
So what are they changing?
Synergy together. I think that they just actually look more comfortable in terms of that synergy right now. They're not kind of splitting all different ways at the moment. I mean, this last week was a little bit hard for them, but they had to play against Origen and H2K, which are not games you think they're going to win in the first place. So that changes things up just a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think that they're not going to hit relegations. And I think that if they're given enough time, and that now that they have NIF back, I think that's another factor, because a lot of these guys already knew how to play with NIF.
Wait a minute. Didn't everyone say NIF sucked and that he had to be cut and that it was great that he was cut, and then good old Crepo got brought in and that was going to make everything great? So what, we're just bringing NIF back again? What was this? I never saw a hashtag keep NIF. What's going on here, Monty? Why is that a good thing they brought him back?
Because he's not promiscuous.
I think the standards are different, though.
Yeah.
I think you look at Worlds and you look at Alliance compete at the World stage, almost getting out of the groups, and then you put NIF in that discussion. And okay, maybe NIF isn't the support that's going to take them through the round of 8 all the way to the finals. But then you start talking about the team that's in the bottom 4 of EU LCS, and NIF is a player that can get them out of bottom 4 of EU LCS. So I think it's different by the situation.
Yes.
With that said, though, listen, you kind of denied that it happened, and you said like it's just if Froggen has the opportunity to play scaling champions, he will. But if you look at all these teams, all the versions of Alliance, all the versions, obviously even going back to Evil Geniuses, and then now all the versions of Elements, they nearly all do just go to this constantly. It has to be like late game scaling approach. Like it makes me feel like Froggen's like. Have you ever seen that famous episode of The Simpsons where they go to Australia, and in it Marge goes to a bar and she says to the bartender like, "Can I have a cup of coffee?" And he goes, "Beer." And she goes, "Coffee." And he goes, "Beer." And then I imagine that Froggen, it's like that. You're like, listen, this time we're going to actually try an early game approach. He's like, scaling. You're like, no, I said like it's an early game. Scaling. Like, okay, then, well, Froggen's picking scaling. I was like, what's going on in Leviathan? Like, they've switched out like everyone except Froggen at this point in time, and it's still happening. So, come on, man, what's going on? There's only one common denominator.
I mean, it must have been subliminal then. He must be, figuring out how to slip it into our brains, because when I was there, he was never like, yeah, man, we're just going to scale like all day. We're just going to be the scaling team, It just so happened that, the
here's the problem. When you say that, that makes me feel like that episode where the generals are in the movie The Downfall. They're all really nervous to tell Hitler that Germany's run out of oil during the war. Like, I feel like none of you wanted to bring it up. You're all like, so... Scaling champs are on the meta again, so we're picking the mid lane for that. And now top lane, like you've really got to buck your ideas up, so you've got to play what's in the meta. Like really, Leviathan, these discussions never happened. Like, some pretty sick champs out there.
The are like, sir, Zed is tier 1. You have to pick Zed.
And he's just lost his shit completely. He's like, fucking Bjorkson is picking Zed and everything. Like,
yeah, he starts freaking out. No, I don't know. I mean, I honestly want to pull up the pick and bans that Froggen has participated in and see if he, actually is playing only scaling champions, because it's not like it's not my main focus.
Have a quick look. At the moment, he like mains Vlad, by the way. Just put that out. At the moment, he's like a main Vlad player, by the way. So just gonna put that out there, mate.
In the mid game, I feel Vlad is at his strongest when he has a Hextech revolver and a Negatron cloak, and could just bash in mid lane over and over and then gain control of the map that way. I think late game scaling would be more like Oriana, where he needs 2 full items or stuff like that. So he's not truly dedicated to the late game right now. But yeah, it isn't a champion that is trying to blow people up at 6. You're right.
Okay. So let me ask you this then. If we've talked about Froggen, we've talked about Elements and Alliance, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, if you were a coach, now we all know coach is not an analyst here live, and you have to be able to talk to players, question things they're doing. Please explain to me what it's like to, when you see Wickd play a game, right, and he does his build path, and you lose the game. After the game, what really happens there,
Wickd, why did you build Rod of Ages?
What does he say?
Well, Catalyst was pretty good, and it gives me this statistic, or let's maybe not make it Alistair, but it gave me this statistic at the time, and in this specific instance of the lane, it gave me an advantage this way. And then when you actually think about it, it's a decent item.
See, it's always that, Monty. It's always that sort of phrase. It's like when you actually think about it, when you play it out correctly, like if something else had happened, it's never like what happened there, is it? That's the key thing. You've got to nail them on. But you nailed it on him. I know Leviathan. So keep going. What did you say next?
And then another thing, I believe the conversation goes, because we've only had 1 or 2 of these conversations.
How's that possible? How's that possible?
Well, I mean, usually there's one instance where he built Rod of Ages on Alistair in the playoffs at Gamescom.
Why not?
And then, can you give me another one that you can remember? Because
I mean, to be fair, you were just playing those late scaling comps. So you needed that rod. I mean, just be logical,
Yeah, and I think what the way the conversation goes is like, what else could I have built? And then you mention it, and then he explains to you why that was incorrect at the time.
Did you just ask me if I can list some examples? Monty, wasn't there like a million examples of where Wickd built the opposite resistance to whatever the enemy team had as their entire team? Like just no MR when they're all AP and shit.
Question mark. And I understand why he does them in his explanations, but Wickd just views those instances. He takes this minor, a minor part of the game, or the part of the game that affects only him, and then conflates it into a build that doesn't make sense in a broader context.
Oh yeah, like Trinity Force Malphite. I think
that's a good one, right? That's a good one.
Yeah, that was bad.
That is a Wickd idea. Well, I mean, his ideas, I guess they make sense.
They do. They do.
Yeah.
When he explains them, they do make sense. Like I said, in the way that, in the specific circumstance that he's talking about, yes, it makes sense. But when you start asking him questions, or asking questions about the build, and be like, well, what about this part of the game, or this part of the game, or this part of the team comp? It just entirely falls apart.
Yeah, I don't think he's always wrong with his builds, but he's
definitely
generally
not.
wrong. Yeah, sometimes they're incorrect.
Yeah. Because here's the big problem Wicked's always had in his career in the latter days. Obviously, in Season 2, the guy was a beast. And so you couldn't really even question him. If you're winning and you do weird shit, at the end, you'd look like a genius, actually. The big problem I've noticed for Wickd, it's a problem in esports massively in general, right? Which is that people think that knowledge is linear and vertical. They think that what they essentially think is, if you don't know what seems like a simple thing, then you can't know what is a complicated thing, which obviously is a ludicrous concept, right? Knowledge is entirely horizontal, and there are a million fields, and you might not have a good knowledge in this area, but you might be an expert in a different area, and you might actually understand a very complicated theory, whereas you might not understand what to someone else seems simple. So unfortunately, if something is done and it's not in the meta and it fails, to a fan, they'll use that logic of well, even I at Silver 2 know that that's wrong, therefore they think that the player's an idiot. And unfortunately, if you're an idiot, they'll then also conflate it with you're a bad player. Now, you'll notice I have almost never ever even made the illusion that Wickd is actually a bad player. I've always said he's a very strong 1v1 player. What was actually Wickid's strengths as a player, do you think, Leviathan? How do you use him if he's in a team of yours?
How do I use Wickd? I uninstall Steam from Wicked's computer so he can't play Counter-Strike. Wicked sometimes likes to log 140 hours of Counter-Strike in 2 weeks.
Monty, hey, listen to this. You can actually make people uninstall games that aren't legal. Okay, continue.
Wow, okay.
Keep going, yeah.
When Wicked plays League and cares about League and his brain's on League, he's a good top laner. He's in the above average.
Monty, I'm going to make a commercial right now. This is your brain. This is Wicked's brain on League. And it just shows him build an AP, Alistair, Run of Ages. This is kids. And I'll get a picture of Wicked when they lost that Kaboom game, that disappointed look, and it'll just say, Run of Ages Alistair, not even once. Just some shit like Counter-Strike. Anyway, continue on, Leviathan.
Wicked knows how to work hard, and when he's working hard at League of Legends, he's a good player. But sometimes he can just, he just wants to play a shit ton of Counter-Strike. And when he plays a shit ton of Counter-Strike, he's just not as good as a player. It's very simple. The more League of Legends Wickd plays, the better he is. And if I had to coach Wickd again, I would just make sure that he spent the majority of his time playing League of Legends and was participating in a lot of League of Legends related activities, whether it was playing or watching replays, doing some stat work. Then yeah, he'll play really well. And I think he's playing pretty well right now on his challenger team because maybe he really wants to get back into LCS. But whoever is his coach,
that's what happens. You have to get into LCS so you have the freedom to play other games. Once you got the Riot money like flowing into the bank account and it's guaranteed for the next few months, that's when you bust out other games, Leviathan, don't you know?
Oh, I'm pretty sure you know about your players playing other games.
Monty, but as a real question, this reminds me of the special discussion we had of why he left TSM, and he insinuated one of the reasons was they put this hard ban where you weren't allowed to play other games, and so the reason why he didn't like it was, to him, it was stupid. Like, you can spend the rest of your free time watching movies, so why can't you play a game in the same time? And I kind of agreed with him, because the problem is,
I agree that
when you're talking about
allowed to play other games. I mean, they're gamers, we're all gamers, like, we like playing games, and you need a break.
Okay.
There's not a problem with that. There's a problem just with the volume of time. That's it.
Yeah.
But that seems to be a problem. Let me just say this point quickly. That seems to be a problem with the really old school players. If they are someone who was around since Season 1, Season 2, when it's Season 5, they don't want to play League of Legends only. And, unfortunately, some of them are going to play just the minimum it takes to be at, game fitness and play in the matches. Like, they're not going to put in the 20 extra hours a week that they don't have to,
It even happens, in Korea. I mean, Shy is notorious right now for, never playing solo queue on CJ. He doesn't even have a challenger account. He doesn't think it's value. Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, there's no other route they could have gone top lane, so I'm afraid he's the best we can get, I'm afraid. So they didn't definitely make a categorically incorrect decision there. So anyway, Leviathan, do you have any thoughts on this topic of because obviously there must be a balance there. They have to have some time they can do other stuff. They're never going to be Koreans, right?
If we scrimmed for 6 hours or 8 hours and you want to play a game of Counter-Strike, go for it. Then you want to watch some VODs of LCK. I think that's useful after you play your game of Counter-Strike. But if you're doing your solo queue grind session, where we have 2 or 4 hours where you have to play solo queue, you got to pick your meta champs, try to get your role, and you got Hearthstone open on your other monitor, then I think that's where the issue comes into play. Make sure your time, it's supposed to be a job, right? 9 to 5 should be dedicated to League. Maybe a couple more hours because of just how competitive League of Legends is. But I have no issues with a game of Hearthstone here and there.
I also think that a lot of the players who, I agree with Leviathan. And I also think a lot of the players who used to play in Season 1 and Season 2, frankly, if we look at what happened back in those days, they weren't even living in gaming houses together. They were not required to play the game to the extent, at least in terms of teamwork and the hard work, not just dicking around in solo queue. They probably put the same number of hours in, but it wasn't very structured practice. But as the scene has evolved, that structured practice becomes increasingly important, right?
I just like the way when Leviathan said the word Hearthstone, he just went full Canadian. He's like, Hearthstone? He's like, listen, the kid's got a good heart, and he's a good player, but when he's just playing too much Hearthstone, it's just, you went full.
Too much Hearthstone, eh? You got to make sure you keep that card game down,
Okay, fair enough.
There you go. A bit of Canadian accent for you.
So, okay.
Go ahead.
No, if you got a final point, keep going.
I was just going to say some shit because there was dead time. You can go ahead.
Okay, yeah. What time? What time are you referring to here?
Oh, I mean, there was an awkward silence, and I felt compelled to speak a few more words.
I think we're learning a lot about your coaching style here, man. I think I know what's going on here. So, okay, let me ask you a bold question then, Leviathan.
Oh, no.
So, the most dominant European split ever. Go to Worlds, win an amazing game over a top Korean team that had been in the finals that earlier in the spring. How does a coach that does all this not get his services retained? What's your explanation?
I bombed the LAN. That was my first LAN tournament where I had to, join the team from, hotel to shuttle to, LAN tournament. A lot of the emotions were really getting to me, and I just kind of crumbled and didn't perform up to how I was performing during the regular season as far as analysis and structure goes. And I just didn't do a good job during Worlds, and that stuck with them more than what I was able to bring to them during the regular season.
Okay, that's kind of.
I just didn't perform well at Worlds. Like, my analysis sucked, my structure sucked.
Then how did they win the perfect game and have all those other good matches? Aren't you being too harsh on yourself here?
I don't know. I mean, it's not like I went back to the. One of the actually reasons why the players. I mean, that's personally how I felt. I was speaking to, I think it was Froggen or Wickd, one of the two, just in the evening after LCS when I was with Gambit. And one of the issues that they had with me is that I was too reckless with my social media. I
thought that was going to be a sick pun leading into some like joke about. Yeah, it was way too reckless, man. Yeah. They were like, we only need a little less recklessness on this team. Like, okay, keep going. You were too overboard with the social media.
Yeah, there was a couple times they're like, "Hey, can you delete that tweet?" And, they think maybe I was.
I can't believe the players bringing the coach up like, "Sir, your dank memes are just they're too much. Please, could you peel it back a little bit? Like a bit of professionalism here. Like, what the fuck? What kind of hierarchy is this?" Okay.
Well, no, it was like it was also the manager. It was the manager that said it to me as well. But I think the words from the manager came from the players. I think the one instance I just kind of sealed my fate was like I was watching one of the games happen, and I was like, "Oh, Fizz is a great pick against, or Lysandre's a great pick against Fizz." And then the team was like, "Why are you saying that? Because now people will know that we think Lysandre's a great pick against Fizz, and that might influence the future draft that we might have." And yeah, they're right. I shouldn't be tweeting specific related to gameplay things, but I guess I thought it was that big of a deal that they shouldn't bring me back.
That's because you hadn't built in you didn't know your team well enough, Leviathan. Like Monte used to be able to say what were great matchups all the time because he knew his team would never do that anyway. Like they never would pick that counter. They never even would pick the champions he told them to. So he actually had a foolproof strategy. They never brought anything up with him at all. Actually, yeah. So what do you think, Monte? Because actually, in general, it seems like a lot of coaches actually do have a fairly like a lot of coaches like to watch the LCS games and make tweets during the games, like what they think is strong or whatever. Do you actually think they should keep it all to themselves in case it does reveal something about their team? What do you think?
I don't know. I think it's just entirely case by case and how often it occurs. So I don't really see that it's going to be that big of a deal, but apparently
I think it's marginal.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's, but I also don't know what, in this specific incident, what was happening inside the team itself.
I mean, I think the specific instance, they were correct in that I shouldn't have tweeted it. But I think just in general, if someone wants to be a Twitter analyst while LCS is going on and just drop generic, like, I think this pick is good here, I think that's fine. I mean, you can also mind game people as well with it too. So you can say, oh yeah, this pick is great here. And meanwhile, you believe the pick is shit. I don't know. That happens a ton. So
you should have just mind game people and been like, this champion correctly built in the top lane shits on that other champion. And then you were never going to pick that anyway, obviously, because you're Wickd. So anyway, now we're going to talk about your time in Gambit. Now, when you were in Gambit, Leviathan, much like with the time in Alliance, there were some positives to talk about. Like the team had problems early on, but then you had this sick 7-game win streak. Obviously, now people are going to be like, that's nothing. Fanatics won all these games. But 7 games was a pretty good win streak. This is obviously the return of Diamondprox was kind of also something that spurred this on as well. I'll ask you the same question. How much do you think you had to do with the win streak of Gambit? And I'm already going to tell you right now, don't go like all fucking humble and Canadian and be like, well, I guess I gave a good effort, but the players did it all. I don't take the credit. Like, come on, man, and get real shit. This is real talk right now. This is summoning insight. Summon some insight, motherfucker.
Okay, I got lucky with. I know a bit about. No. Okay, there's one specific thing that I think helped a lot. Obviously, I can reiterate the things that I helped with on Alliance. Obviously, I'm not going to completely change my
similar things,
my game. Yeah, but one thing that I picked up on was I realized there was a big emphasis on sports psychology. So I did a bit of studying on sports psychology and focus. And Diamondprox, he came to me. I would pull the players away into the kitchen, and we would have a one-on-one talk about specific aspects of the game. And Diamond kind of expressed look, sometimes I just enter autopilot in the game, and I'll have a plan and I'll just kind of zone out. And I remember reading a thing about how to focus and how to keep your mind sharp and in the now. And I shared with him a video and kind of worked with him and gave him a tool to help him train his focus, and that was around the same time we started winning all those games in a row. Basically, it just allowed Diamondprox to fully utilize his mind when in the game. To kind of share the point, okay. It was like, no, it's true.
No, listen, I just keep going. It's just the way you phrased it, okay? Like, listen, hey, basically all you did there was, you were absolutely right. That is what you did. But actually, it's like you went the other way there. You, like, talked yourself up. Like, all I did is just basically take the greatest jungler, and I actually kind of unleashed him to utilize his entire brain. Before, that was Diamondprox using only 10% of his brain, but I actually unlocked the hidden depths of his brain and turned him into God. Actually, yeah.
But it's true though, because honestly, what would happen is you would just stop thinking during the game and get into like this zone, and the way you make sure you're focusing is it's impossible for anyone to remain focused for an entire game of League of Legends. Yeah. Your mind is going to drift. But
see, Monty, it wasn't Doublelift's fault. He was doing his best, mate.
But those that perform the skill of focus the best are the ones that identify when they drift quickly and are able to return to the focus. Yeah. So I just gave him some tools to help him, keep his brain focused. Like I made him stare at an inanimate object for 2 minutes and just breathe in, breathe out, and then say a word. My word when I do it is 1 speed. I say whenever I do something, I want to do it at 1 speed, like the fullest speed, the best I can do it. And just by reminding yourself, okay, 1 speed, it clicks you back into the zone that you need to be in.
It's a meditation technique, yeah.
Yeah, and there was an article that Diamond shared that with, Leviathan helped me with overcome my mental issues, and I think that was a really big part of it. And then we just got really lucky with the meta fitting, like a wombo combo style of AoE team fight, which was really good because Cavalshard was, I think, one of the best players in the team, if not the best player in the team. And when he has a great jungler that allows him to, never fall behind, just by, repeatedly ganking his lane, dropping wards for his lane, and putting him in a situation where when he shows up to the team fight, those 4-man or 5-man ultimates that he hits actually do damage, then we're going to win games of League of Legends,
Is there any part of you now kind of thinks back like, wait a minute, there was a jungler, he used to like zone out during the game, and he couldn't always keep focused. Fuck, if only I'd have got to Shook 1 split earlier. If I'd have known that I got 1 speed, Shook, 1 speed. Like you could have turned everything around, bro. You could have saved him.
I mean, hindsight's 20/20, right? So, sure. I've learned over the time I've coached. Like, I've had my strengths that have got me on the teams. Then, while spending time with the teams, you learn different strategies. Like, I didn't have any real sports psychology training or experience on Alliance, and I brought a bit of it to Gambit, and it helped us win more games. And I'm sure there's going to be something that I'm doing incorrectly on Winterfox that I'm gonna pick up on over the course of the season.
Yeah, okay. So
no, I even said when I joined Winterfox, I was like, look, I'm going to win you guys games League of Legends. Hopefully, we're 0-4 right now, which is kind of unlucky.
Okay, but, well, later on, though, yeah.
Later on, I'm going to win you guys games League of Legends, but I'm probably going to piss you off in some sort of way. So please approach me with it before firing me so we can work it out and continue to win games.
That's smart. See, Monty, he learned. He doesn't know how to fix the problem, but he knows how to make his teammates aware and how to zone back in, Now he's ready to encounter that the next time it comes, It's smart. I like that. Okay, so on the topic of, you brought up some interesting stuff there. So you remember during that split, Monty, that was the split where everyone was like, Diamondprox is back. Like the Nidalee, everything was. What do you remember of that split, Diamondprox? What do you think was different, or what was he doing well?
Well, I mean, Diamondprox has a tendency to sometimes just go nuts and pick very weird champions that don't fit the meta. So I think it was nice to see that Diamondprox was actually going with some more meta selections in terms of his champion pool. But I think that he just, we talked about this on the show, they looked like they were a lot more confident than they had been previously. And
I think Diamondprox, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, like there wasn't any question about their definitive play style or anything like that. I mean, I think that by the end of the season, they were kind of derpy and like overly risky and like hiding in random bushes and shit like that. But they played a very aggressive style, and I think that I'm not sure if it would continue to work for them now had they kept that same roster. I think that they were in a bit of a Unicorns of Love situation where their play was not calculated enough, and the comms didn't look that good to me. And Unicorns of Love, of course, made that Game 5 in the final, but now we're just like thoroughly mediocre in terms of their record.
Yeah, they're very hit and miss.
But that's what that playstyle gets you. You know, sometimes you are going to flip a coin and you'll get heads 8 out of 10 times, but most of the time you're just going to get 5.
Right. And I think one very important thing with Diamondprox is he has to love his jungler that he's playing. If he
top laner or mid laner or something, you mean? Oh, you just mean the champion?
The champion.
Okay.
When he queues up for the game and locks in his champion, he's got to be like, man, this thing is fun. I'm going to play the shit out of it and learn it. Because if he's not on a champion he enjoys playing...
It's called the Dominion principle. He has to be like, it's fast, it's fun, I can't wait to play this. Like, okay, keep going. It's an old meme now. I brought that one out of the closet there.
I mean, I run in-house Dominions on whatever server I'm on. I used to have a thing in the US. We built our own little meta. We had our own priority picks for Dominion. I love the...
You discussed Monte, but continue on anyway.
It's a good game mode. It has rotations, man. But yeah, if Diamondprox doesn't love his champion, then he's not going to perform on it as well as he would playing on a champion he thoroughly enjoys playing. Because he's going to figure out all the ins and outs of the champion, figure out all the tricks, like the Nidalee. Throws the spear, hops over the wall, and then times the spear with a smite to make sure he always outsmites the enemy jungler. Like, I'm sure if he didn't love playing Nidalee and log a ton of games on it, he wouldn't have figured out that play.
Why do you have any kind of comments like similar to what we did with Alliance Elements? Like, do you think this is some kind of factor behind Diamondprox's problems, at least in this split?
I mean, didn't he play I kind of
played some Volibear, yeah.
Yeah, he's playing Volibear.
Yeah, like one of the things that I think one of his issues is his champion pool. Like we brought up the fact that maybe Udyr would have been good in the week before we played against Unicorns of Love. It turned out to not be a good pick, but he didn't want to play it. Didn't even queue a game of solo queue on it. Maybe one game, and then we lost to it in the first game we lose to it. He's like, no, Udyr still isn't a good pick. And then we lose to it again, and the first thing he says to me back in the room is, I can pick Udyr next game. So I think that just a lot of the champions that he picks or just what he thinks is good in the meta can be off. So if his coach or his team has a strong grasp on what junglers are good for what reason, and then he listens to them, he might be a better jungler. I personally just feel his biggest issue is the junglers that he picks and when and why.
Why do you think that is then? Because obviously, listen, this is one of the best junglers of all time, like an all-time great player. People, again, referencing back to that whole thing about fans thinking like linear is not, like knowledge is linear. So if you're a great player, obviously you should always be making great decisions, know everything about the game. How can such a great player have such an off perspective? Like he's just not in line with what most of the great junglers are thinking.
And also, like, how was coaching Diamondprox? Because this is a team, Gambit, that really hasn't been coached before you came in, right?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I think I was their first coach. I mean, Groove, their owner, has a lot of experience in Counter-Strike.
Did you just say owner?
Or I don't know what he is. He's manager, owner, or something.
It's okay. You just saved your own life. Leviathan, you just saved your own life right
honestly,
there, mate.
Even on the back end, like being a coach, the ownership is still blurry to me.
Who owns the team, Leviathan?
Dude, I got paid in cash for a couple months. Like, I don't know. It's sketchy over there.
Well, the FBI will one day track them down. So.
Should we edit that out? No, I don't know. But yeah, it's what's the original topic?
What was it like coaching Diamondprox? Because we're saying, he sounds like an unusual person.
He listens, which I don't think people would expect him to listen. Like when I spoke to him about sports psychology stuff, he was very open and responsive to it. But he's very stubborn on picks and meta.
Feels like you get a lot of players like that. Is there something? Are you attracted? Maybe you have to ask yourself. Are you attracting these people to you? Is that your path through life, Leviathan?
As a coach, you're not. You don't pick the players. You just have to make the most of the players you're given. If you want to be the guy that forms awesome teams, then you should sign up as a manager.
Okay. Take that, Monty. Okay. So anyway, yeah.
You gotta make the best out of what players you're given.
Yeah.
I don't know. He likes to pick what he likes. It looks like I haven't checked their drafts in a couple weeks. Like, or I don't remember them off of hand. But if I remember correctly, the Gambit is playing meta junglers. So Sean's must be doing a good job of keeping him in check there. But yeah, I don't know. That's my only gripe with Diamondprox. Mechanically, he's sound. and when he goes off and carries the game.
So let me ask you this then: what is his key strength then? Because the difficult thing is, people would always in the past have said like innovating picks, like that's one of them, or people might say like, oh, he's like super sick at getting these amazing ganks off or whatever. But he can be so hot and cold even over his career. Like there's been multiple times now where throughout a season he's had dips and then he'll bring it back again and suddenly be brilliant. But the thing is, he never was like Cacaw's mechanics. He never was just like Dandy's godlike knowing where to be everywhere on the map at all exact points in time. He never was like any one definable thing. What do you think the strengths of Diamondprox are? Like when he's at his best?
Innovative builds on his champions. He was the first to do Roa Nidalee, and Roa Nidalee at the time, Rod of Ages Nidalee, was really, really good. And he was one of the first to utilize the Red Smite, the challenging smite, the duel, and everyone was saying, what the fuck is he doing building that Red Smite, when he made it work, and Red Smite ended up becoming meta. And I think that's where he shines. And then I think he plays solid when he has a game plan and knows what he needs to do. Like if he thinks the game plan is to camp top and get top some kills, he'll get his top laner some kills. He's not going to mess up in that area. Just a solid jungler.
So let me ask you a question along those lines of exactly what you just said there. From talking, like I've talked to many of Diamondprox's teammates throughout the years, okay, so when I did an interview with Alex Hitch, now admittedly this long interview I did, the Reflections one, was when Alex Hitch had literally just left Gambit. So okay, maybe there was like a little bit of salt there, maybe there's some tensions, but he kind of actually downplayed the aspect of, obviously, if me and you, Monty, are making a list of like great jungle mid synergies, we're going to be like, oh yeah, Diamondprox and Alex Hitch. Alex Hitch made it sound like actually I never felt like we really did like work all the time. To him, it was like he thought Diamondprox was always going top to help Darien, and obviously that was supposedly that was one of those cliques within the team. People always said it was Darien and Diamondprox are the ones who got along. So coming into the Gambit era, later on he has Betsy as his mid laner. He had Neek before that during your era, and now he's got Forgiven as a bot laner. But it seems like there might be some tension even in the modern Gambit over like, does he gank bottom enough? It sounds like for some reason he just only ganks for his top lane. That's like a hard and fast rule. Obviously, a bit of I'm making it too simplistic there, but it sounds like in general that's for some reason his preference: gank the top lane over and over and over again. So why do you think this is? Have you ever got to the bottom of this? Is there a reason why that's his approach, if indeed it is?
Well, the time that I spent in Gambit camping for top was the ideal move for the meta. You get your top laner, especially in this teleport meta. If you can win, as a jungler, if you can win top lane for your top laner, then your top laner can teleport bottom and win the bottom lane. And then from there, you just have control of the game. And then your mid laner just has to go even or better to control the middle of the map. So applying jungle pressure to bottom just didn't really work in the meta that I was playing in, or coaching in when we were playing. So I can't really touch on that, but I mean, that's what he likes as a jungler. That's what he liked on Gambit. So I guess, yeah.
Monty, what do you think of that theory he just gave? Because I'll just point this out before I throw it in. This isn't like I'm not trying to say it's bullshit. I'm just saying, just as a caveat, just as an interesting detail, the team that was the most dominant during the split he was talking about were a team that were entirely bot-centric focused, and the jungler often came bot to help the best player in the league, who was the AD carry, get ahead. What do you think on that era?
I think that I wouldn't say that we were in a very top-focused meta at the time last season. I think that's been something that's been kind of developing since MSI over the course of the summer season. I do feel that right now we're in a very top-focused meta as more and more of these like Smite top laners appear and carry top laners appear. It was only after Cinderhulk that it became more top-focused because the junglers could all of a sudden fill the tank role, or the supports could. Which freed up the top lane in terms of versatility and I think really hard carry potential. So I'm not sure I entirely agree with that. But
I guess it's just biased because we had
you had Cabashar,
I guess, right?
Plus, here's the thing.
And he was a great carry top, right? No doubt. But,
okay, and also, admittedly, at the time, you didn't have Forgiven. You had Pinoy down there. So listen, it's all making sense to me, mate. I'm understanding the priority list here, the hierarchy. It all makes sense to me. But so let me ask you this question then. As someone who was a coach of Gambit, and that was the old way, and that was the star player at the time, like the two best players was Diamondprox and Cabashard. Do you think I've gone too far when I recently did my video where I kind of stated that I think one of the things that to me is a waste is that Gambit got Forgiven and then have kind of just resigned him to almost a secondary role, and he doesn't get much jungle pressure. Like, to me, if you're going to have Forgiven, you go all out and you set him up to carry the game. What do you think on that? Have I gone too far with that? In the context of Gambit, this is?
I'm not entirely confident with my opinion on this, but I do have an opinion on it. I think the AD carry role right now is just, it lacks so much influence in the early game that you could start the best AD carry, or not, maybe not the best, 'cause maybe the best can just carry the game, but a very good AD carry, or slightly below average AD carry, and they'll fill the same job up until like 30 minutes or 3 items in the game. They're just going to play Sivir. They're just going to give their whole team move speed, or they're going to play Corki. And
Kasing's just going to carry him through the game. Yeah, we know. Oh, wait, mate, you meant generally.
Oh,
yeah.
H2K
going.
is
keep going. Keep going.
Yeah. But I think
shots.
You could play Caitlyn Nami with the new jungle and lane swap and knock down towers all day, and it might win you games of League of Legends if you have Forgiven on your team. But I mean, I didn't scrim with them. I don't know if they tried it.
I mean, to be fair, Edward definitely couldn't play Nami, so that's out the window immediately.
Or Lulu.
Lulu. Okay, you can do the Lulu. Yeah,
you can play Lulu. So I'm not sure if they tried it and it didn't work. Maybe they tried it, but yeah, like even you said before, like the Forgiven style could be let them play how they want to play, and then when they're demoralized, just sneak in and be like, hey, we could always just play for me too, we could just give me all the farm, and we'll see how that goes, because I can carry. You've seen it. You've watched the VODs. So
I like this. See, he's done his homework, Monty. He knows how I think. I like that. Okay, so. Yeah, so okay, you didn't get to the end part then. So what do you think? So basically, you're kind of hinting at the fact that even if you've got Forgiven, maybe it's not worth giving a priority bot. Like, it is still better to give priority to Cabochard.
Yeah, I think the meta just fits that better now. I'm gonna assume that they've tried it and tried playing a Forgiven centric team composition / strategy, and it probably hasn't worked, because if it did work, they'd be playing it right now. They'd still be playing Lucian and lane swapping every game and just smashing down towers. But if they're not, so it probably just doesn't work.
Monty, I know you were super high on Forgiven last split. What do you actually think of now, though? Because let's face it, there haven't really been many standout games from this split at all. Like, barely any. A couple. Even in the wins, he's just good. He's like solid, and he's not really blowing anyone away anymore. What is your take on what's going on?
Again, we talk a lot about this earlier, but I think a lot of the issue has been one of. I mean, obviously, Gambit looked like they weren't even able to practice before the EULCS started, so you have to consider that factor just even coming into the season. And Gambit in the last couple of weeks the last few weeks has done better. They've at least had a 50% record in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So it looks like they may be starting to pull it together a little bit. Even though last week, I mean, they were just beating like Rocket and Copenhagen Wolves, so it's not exactly world beaters. But I think that part of it was that he no longer has a team that plays around him. And Gambit, like we were just talking about, is used to playing. I mean, that was the whole thing last season. That's what everybody saw, what everybody was saying. Diamond just camps for Cabochard. Everybody knows where Diamond's going to go. He's going to go gank for Cabochard. Cabochard's going to get a kill. Then Cabochard's going to teleport somewhere else on the map and turn that kill into more kills, and then carry top laners like Diana or whatever, right? So as opposed to SK, where Freddy is a top laner who is just playing tanks, pretty much, and it was all about putting the pressure and support around the bottom lane for Forgiven. And now he's thrown into a team without practice in a system that doesn't put him at the forefront. And I think this is what happens.
Yeah.
And what is your opinion of that, though?
Well, what can you do? They didn't have time to practice, Right.
I mean, is that the right approach?
Is what the right approach? Not practicing? No, it's not the right approach.
No, focusing on top like this and not giving any support to the bot.
It's hard to say what is the right approach right now. I think that in the current
what did you think of Jordan's
right
statement
now,
about how you could take any AD carry, throw him in for the first 3 items, and they'd probably be similar?
I'm not sure about that, because we've seen how punishing Forgiven can be in the laning phase.
Okay, well, do you think Vardags is going to do the same job as... I don't want to flame anyone here, so I'm just going to end that there. But do you think if you compare...
Can you just flame Vardags?
No, I love Vardags.
Okay, he's dog shit, mate.
You don't know if I was calling Vardags a good player or a bad player.
Well, depending on what your answer is now, mate, I'll be calling you a good coach or a fucking bad coach. He's a fucking terrible player. What are you talking about? Anyway, keep going.
No, I was gonna say like you take a middle of the pack team with like
Yeah,
a
middle of
decent
the pack,
AD
yeah,
carry,
keep going.
and then you take like another middle of the pack team and just replace AD carry. I don't think the AD carry is doing too much different.
Okay.
Like it's only the top 1% or like the very best AD carries.
Okay.
AD carries
Let's just get down to brass tacks here. Let's get all this vague bullshit out of the way. What we're essentially asking right now, Leviathan, what I'm going to ask Monty afterwards, is this. Okay. Last split, Forgiven wasn't just supposed to be the best AD carry in Europe. He's supposed to be the best AD carry in the West, the best player in the West, people were saying. So he was supposed to be a superstar level talent. Now, this split, he isn't even the best AD carry in his region. Most people will say, most people wouldn't even have him top 2 or top 3. And beyond that, he has some issues. Now, if put it this way, if Gambit continues as they are now, even if they win games, if he's not in like a primary role and he's just doing well or okay, he's never going to be thought of in the way he was the split before. So is he were we in some way over imagining how good he was the first split? Is he actually not as good? Was he overhyped? What do you think on this topic? I mean, essentially, is he that good a player?
Well, let's figure out why people thought he was so good.
Okay, go for it.
So the first thing that you can comment on Forgiven is his mechanics are very, very strong.
Yep.
You've seen clips of him dodge skill shots from Fog with insane reaction speeds. Generally, he plays laning phase very solid, making very few mistakes. We tried to play Thresh against his Caitlyn, and he netted away from every hook, and it was very good. But then you also had a strategy that was focused around Forgiven and put Forgiven in the spotlight, and you paid a lot of attention to Forgiven because that was how their team won games. And now you want to take a look at Forgiven on Gambit. I don't lock my camera on Forgiven. Has his mechanics faltered at all? Like, do you guys watch Forgiven? Is he making mechanical mistakes in lane?
Not as in like he has bad mechanics or not good mechanics. I think it's more like the only time I ever see him make mistakes in lane look more like tilt or like trying to force shit to happen when you don't have the jungle pressure and maybe it's not even good matchups anymore because it's not your beast champions. So I still think he's really good. I'll admit I don't understand why he's bad right now. I don't understand why he doesn't succeed, even if his team doesn't focus. It doesn't make sense to me. So that's why I'm wondering if you have any light to shine on right now.
I don't know. I think if you truly wanted to compare Forgiven last split to Forgiven this split, you'd have to ask Gambit to play the same style that SK did. I tried my best, mate. I made a whole video about it. I tried to bully them into it. Tried to shame them into it. It's difficult.
He tried to bribe the owner, but he doesn't know where the owner is. Jordan, do you know where the owner is?
Somewhere in Russia, I believe. Somewhere in the hills of Russia.
He said too much already. He said too much. Monty, what do you think on this?
It's also his champion pool. He's actually playing Sivir and champions right now where he can't be as lane dominant or as flashy as he was in the past.
Yeah. Monty, the best players in the world at AD carry at the moment play Sivir and shit on people. Yep. They don't in the lane, but then they dominate the game. Is there a reason why he isn't doing this?
Perhaps he's not that familiar with the champion. I don't know.
Mate, you just group up, you press R, they're done so, The jokes write themselves, mate. It's an easy champion, right?
It's not
different though.
It's not that challenging to group up and press R. No, it is challenging to get proper positioning on Sivir.
Yeah.
Because she's very low range and it's tough.
And your responsibilities are different too, I believe. With Caitlyn and Lucian, you want to blast down a wave, you want to get some auto attacks in on the tower, and then when they engage on you, you want to put out as much damage as possible or running backwards. And last time I checked, Sivir runs forwards with her ultimate.
You can kite with her too, but it depends on the team composition.
Right.
Most of the time, you're going to use her for hard engage.
So you're asking him to play a different style than what he had played before. So you can't just go Forgiven last split did this, Forgiven this split did this,
sure,
and just have it be black and white. You have to evaluate it for what it is, and maybe give him 2 or 3 more weeks of practicing Sivir. Apparently, they weren't practicing as a team before the split started due to internet issues or whatever. So, give it a couple weeks and then we can go back to it, I guess. But I don't think he's playing bad. I think, it's more of a team issue with Gambit.
Do you think Gambit is the right sort of a team for Forgiven? Like, before he moved there, if you could have picked, so supposedly another destination he could have gone to was Roccat. Would Roccat have been a better destination for Forgiven, do you think?
Let's think. Their top laner, Steve, I don't know anything about.
No one does. We just know his name's Steve, that's it.
I watched him play the first couple weeks, and I think he fed a lot, and then I just kind of stopped caring about Rocket.
Classic Steve.
Classic Steve. Nuke Duck is supposed to be really good, but isn't really good. So
Isn't he? He's not very good, is he?
He's not living up to the lemon dog.
What do you think of him?
Who, Nuke Duck?
You're not in a police station right now, motherfucker. Yeah, the guy you just said isn't very good. Unsurprisingly.
I just don't think he's top tier mid laner. But
okay, wait a second. Let's make the top tier in Europe. What position would he? There's 8. Okay, there's 10 mid laners in LCS Europe. Where would Nuke Duck be out here? Look at him pulling up eSportspedia like quickly. What do I do? Can I put Thorin above him? Yeah.
Ryu is better.
2.
Xpeke
3
is better. Pepinero is equal or better.
4.
Power of Evil. Froggen.
Yeah, I think he is equal or better. I think Nuke Duck is equal to or better than Betsy. But EU's stacked for mid laners. Like this.
You think Pepinero's that good?
Yeah, Pepinero.
Statistically, Pepinero is super good.
In what respects? What is he really good at? Because whenever I watch him, it seems like I think people only watch the godlike games he has. He has like 1 out of 4 games is super sick. Most of the other ones, even in wins, are like fairly average. Actually, I think
he puts out more damage per minute than any other player in the EU LCS, and he's doing 37% of his team's damage currently. Okay, he is carrying the ever-loving shit.
You know, those are the same sort of stats you gave about Froggen before, where everyone thinks Froggen sucks a dick, right?
Yep.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Duncan, have you seen the movie Moneyball?
Yeah.
You know how there was that pitcher that threw underhand, and everyone just thought he was garbage, but when you check his statistics, his numbers are great. I think that's a similar case with Pepinero.
That's a fair example. Yeah.
Yeah. I know you like your references, so I tried to throw that one in there.
Well done.
Yeah.
No, here's the thing. I don't think he's bad, but I just don't understand. Put it this way: if people bill it so for what Monty's saying there, Monty just said he's very good. So so is Pepinero trapped on a bad team, and he should be like the second best mid laner in Europe with all his potential unleashed?
He's good. I wouldn't say he's very good. I said his statistics are very good in terms of how hard he can carry a team, and that's important. His laning is a little bit below average right now. Actually, he falls behind in gold early on, and he also takes a huge amount of the team's gold. Like, he takes more gold. He takes 28.8% of his team's gold right now. That's more than even forgiven.
Because when I look at the Giants team, first of all, they're one of the, if we had to put different categories for what teams are good at, I think their only strength as a team is synergy. They actually team play pretty well. I don't think they're pretty good. Otherwise, I don't think they're that good. To me,
and also he is the most fed player in the EU LCS. He gets more gold than anyone else in the EU LCS in terms of percentage of his team's total gold. And he also does the most damage in terms of percentage out of anyone in the EU LCS.
When I look at their team, I don't think their team has many good players.
One carry.
I don't know. I think their solo lanes are the best. They're pretty good. I think the top lane is pretty decent. You don't think so?
Warlib? Whatever.
What do you think, Leviathan? Weigh in on this.
It's just Warlord.
You're a fucking fan of Pepinero, so come on, mate. Tell me what they're so great at.
I mean, I'm not a fan. I know he plays a good mid lane.
Okay,
that's about it. I'm not.
Didn't you just rate him above Froggen? He's better than Froggen, right?
That's close. Okay. I think I don't know. I don't know enough about EU LCS and the intricacies of mid lane to declare one better than the other. But I think they're both very good mid laners good mid laners. I gotta be careful with what I say. Yeah, I think Nuke Duck, he plays a decent lane. I think he's rather the same as Betsy. He's not going to lose you the game, but I mean, he's not just going to go off consistently, I guess. He's not going to just dump on people every game. So
I think they've played something is it 11 or 12 games so far? I think it's 11, right? No, it's 12. It's 12. They've played 12, and I think he's actually had 5 games where he went ham on everyone. That's not amazing. Now, listen, out of 12, if you're going to be a godlike mid lane, you probably should have had 9 out of them, 8 or 9. But 5's still pretty good. He's had some games where he goes crazy.
Yeah, and I guess. I don't know how to elaborate on that. I'm not saying Nuke Duck is garbage, replace the mid laner on Rocket.
So anyway, originally the point you were making was let's look at the Rocket team. So there was Nuke Duck there, who you then dissed with your thing. But anyway, the Nuke Duck moved beyond Nuke Duck. What else about the team?
Jankos is very smart and very good. Same with Vander. That's actually interesting. I would like to see Vander and Forgiven in a lane. If they could.
So would I, mate.
The same pace.
When I said I wanted to see Edward in Forgiven, I meant, like 2 years ago. I didn't mean now. Like, it's like if I said, hey, man, you know what I've always dreamed of? I always wanted to see Sting play in the Rolling Stones. And they were like, well, here's little did you know, here they are now. I'm like, no, not now. Like in fucking 1982 or something. Like, what the? Not now. Like, it's going to be garbage now. Like, you know.
Yeah, no, I think there'd be, I mean, I can't predict whether that team would be, you know, insane.
Do it. Predict.
Bad. Oh, okay.
Savage.
So yeah, you just got to insert Forgiven into Rocket, and then I think they could rival Fnatic's current record this season.
Because Fnatic are a bunch of pussies, right?
Yeah, no, I just think
guys.
Forgiven is that perfect missing piece from Rocket, and had they been able to make that acquisition, that team would have been better than Fnatic right now.
Why not?
No, I don't know. I think Forgiven's a good player, and he probably makes teams better, and you know he plays his role well. But the impact one player can have on a team is you can't tell, because like look at Reckless being added to Alliance now and turned into Elements. That team on paper, you know, you can say, oh well, this team is really good. Just add Reckless, and this team should win every game. But that's not how it happened.
Actually, I wanted to ask you about the impact that one player can have on a team. So there was this player called Pinoy, and in this IEM tournament, everyone was like, "Oh my God, look at him! His Graves, he is shitting on double lift in one game." But I will pretend that is the whole tournament. They didn't say that second part; that was in closed brackets. So anyway, he was shitting on double lift with Graves at the IEM. They won the IEM, and then in the regular split, every now and then he'd have a good game. But in general, actually, his level was a lot lower than that. And then in the playoffs, he was actually the MVP of Unicorns of Love's campaign because he just played Urgot and did nothing, just did nothing for like every game. And then he was like, "Don't worry, coach." Like you were going through the team. Like, listen, last game Diamond. Like I don't know what the recs are. Like, should we switch that up? You know, like Betsy. What are we going to? Actually, was it Neek at the time who they had? Was it Neek or Betsy you had?
When? What week?
In the playoffs when you got shit on by Unicorns of Love.
Then Betsy. We dropped
Betsy.
We dropped
okay.
NIQ.
So you were like Betsy, like you know. Keep doing stuff 1 in 4 games. I don't know, but I don't know what you do. Yeah, okay. And then you were like, now Pinoy about last game, and he's like, I know, coach, I can definitely play the Urgot again. You were like, well, fuck me. So apparently you never thought to bring him off. Like, come on, man, what the fuck was Pinoy doing on Urgot in that series?
I don't think it was the pick. I think unless Urgot has a wider hitbox than other AD carries you can pick, he was just eating bindings from Hillisang.
Is that it?
They would play the laning phase. They would be winning the laning phase up 5 to 15 CS, and then Hillisang would hit a binding, and they'd kill Pinoy already, and then they'd get the lead back, and then they would just win the game outside.
The way that guy was playing, I'd have wanted myself to do a fucking Urgot and run over to him, pull him out of his chair with a position swap, and fucking play myself. That was terrible, man. Do you remember that series, Monty? He was dog shit, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Sure, he played a bad Urgot. That's what you want to hear.
Yeah, that's his crime, and for that he should
played a bad.
Time for the Game of Thrones walk of shame. Yeah, and I just shout Urgot in his face the whole time as he walks. Yeah. Okay.
Pinoy did not play a good Urgot.
So let me ask you this, Leviathan.
My favorite part was when he hid in the tri-brush and like one-shotted the Hecarim when he was playing Graves. That shit was hilarious.
Oh yeah, no, his understanding of I have this much AD, so this means I can do this much damage on Graves is really, really good. Like that's how he beat double lift. He checked his items. He's like, I got a BF sword, pickaxe, and longsword, and double lift has 1200 HP. I can flash Q or E auto, and he's dead. So I'll just do it. And double lift didn't do the math. And that's one of the strengths of Pinoy.
Hashtag double lift didn't do the math. Start the memes, boys. We've got a new meme going.
Do the math. It's a really good meme.
You know the sad part about that, by the way, is here's the one thing, Monty. People always go too far with the Koreans. Like, this is something that LS goes way too far, and he thinks that like Koreans know. They're like, oh, am I playing an opponent who is level 14 and has this item and probably running these masteries and exactly these runes? I'll estimate these runes. Therefore, I know I have 2 extra AD to do this kill. Like, there's no way anyone except Madlife, if he actually was Rain Man in season 2, knows any of that shit, right? They vaguely know stuff. Like, I bet Faker could have a pretty good guess at some of that stuff, right? But actually, I think Western players are way off on that. Like, you'd be amazed the number of Western players who play 100% by feel and don't know any of the math on that shit. It's actually horrific.
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go for it.
When I was speaking to LS, he claimed that flashcards were used with like hold up the card and it says like no sphere rank 3. and then the player would have to go like 200 damage. And they'd flip the card over, and they'd be like, "Oh, it's 180 damage," and that's how they would train their numbers.
I mean, that could be plausible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know how much of an edge that's going to give you, but yeah, that's sure.
Maybe you should have tried that in your career. Like you should have been
that's what I'm doing wrong.
Wicked.
You know,
second item on second item, Alistair. He's like Locket of the Solaris. Like they're like, nope. Fuck, I was close, wasn't I, Coach? Yeah, almost.
If I had the flashcards, we would have beaten Kaboom.
Okay. And then double lift would be like Monty could do it for double lift. He could be like, okay, you are facing against a lane with Caitlyn in it, and he's like, it's Maple Street, so I shit on him and I go straight in. Like I didn't say what champion it is. Like I just said the champion. I didn't say who you were playing. Like, but no, but it would be though, wouldn't it? Like okay. That's how it would work. The system breaks down, you know.
The memes are really just flowing today too. It's I really like we would have beat Kaboom if we had the flashcards. Exactly. The flashcards were the answer all along.
Dude, you gotta find those small edges, man. They add up. Game of inches, man. It's the flashcards.
So okay,
flashcards.
So you're talking about Pinoy's aspect there, then. So let me ask you this, Leviathan. I was actually shocked that you ended up in a team with Pinoy again, and I guess you imagine why I might say that, because when you left Gambit, normally when people, I normally get mad at people. One thing I actually hate, Leviathan, is when people leave a team and it's obvious to me that they didn't get along and that maybe it wasn't even an amicable parting, but everyone's like professional, which is just lying actually. Like, no, they're a wonderful person, and actually I think whichever team they go to, oh golly, I'm sure would be afraid of what they'll be like. I'm sure they'll probably beat us. Oh, we'll probably regret it down the line. Meanwhile, and behind the scenes, they're like, that guy's dog shit, get him out of my fucking sight now. So anyway, Here's the problem. When you left, they didn't, because it's Gambit. First of all, it's Gambit, okay? Gambit doesn't do any of that shit, and I love that. But Gambit's version of that, Gambit's even leaving message was almost like, he's gone, get the fuck out the door, and he just left a load of mess anyway. Fuck that guy, we get a new coach. That was almost like the official message right there. I just like cleaned it up from the Russian there. So anyway, then everyone went back to your Twitter history, and like Pinoy was directly just going in on you, just like, almost like, yeah, bitch, you didn't do any fucking shit when you were in our team, man. Like, come on, man, what the fuck is going on? There was obviously some friction, right?
Yeah, and, after the season, we had a long chat. We kind of talked it out. We basically just figured out, like, I don't want to get into too many specifics, but, I kind of expressed the things I didn't like with, how he acted as a player on the team. And, he kind of said some of the things he felt I can improve on as a coach, and we said our sorries, and that was improved. This is even before any sort of consideration of me joining Winterfox was taking place. I had already said, hey, Frank Finn Gaming, you guys got this Challenger promotion tournament coming up, I'll work with you guys, like I'll coach you guys. And there was no discussion Winterfox. They had Elder Pico as their coach, and it was just sort of like let's figure this out, because we do like each other as people. Like, we got along well. I hung out with, I guess, Pinoy after hours the most at anyone on the team, and we played our little PlayStation games together. But we just had a couple disagreements, and we talked them out even before I'd considered joining Winterfox. So once the opportunity for Winterfox came up, I settled all the quarrels I had with him, and if anything, it made it more comfortable for me to come here.
I like the way you just dropped that name in of the previous coach, as though any of us know who the fuck that is. Like, I thought you just said, like, they had an elderly peacock as their coach. I was like, well, no, why not? It is the West. That could be a challenger coach. I don't know. When it displays its colourful tail feathers, that means, like, bad comp or something. I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, Tristan Elder Pico. Yeah, he, after Paragon departed, he joined for the last couple weeks. LCS,
that guy,
Remember
that ends the Elder Pico segment of this show. Now, moving on. Yeah. Anyway, the BMs, the burns. So.
Yeah.
So okay.
No, go ahead.
How did Gambit go from a 7-game winning streak to the way that it ended? Listen, mate, we predicted you would beat Unicorns in Love. You're to blame for everything. You're like the person who let Patient Zero get out and make the outbreak hack. And you could have killed him when he was just a little baby, and you were like, gave him mercy. And as a result, look at the monster you created. Luckily, God.
Gambit said, right? Like, I got dropped because of poor playoff performance. We should have beaten Unicorns Love, and we didn't, and that's my fault. But no, I
can't really have been though, right?
Monty approved of our draft when he spoke about it at the time. Our draft, I felt, was sound, and we practiced those champions in the weeks leading up to the event, and we had decent success rate during the scrims, and Unicorns of Love. I think this is a really good strategy for best of fives when you're out. I don't want to say outclassed, but when you don't have a distinct
they
advantage
were
over the
outclassed.
team. Sure, okay, you can say that.
I mean, you had Pinoy, so I guess it's apples and oranges, but yeah.
Yeah, but I think when you're able to, just play shit that the enemy team hasn't seen and doesn't know how to play against, like the way they were playing, just like putting 2 shields on an Udyr and just running into our backline. We hadn't scrimmed against that sort of strategy at all. So when it happens to them in game, they're like, oh, what is the most optimal way to play out this team fight? Whereas if Unicorns of Love had just locked in meta picks, they would have known how to play out the game from minute 0 to Nexus Explosion. And it probably would have been cleaner, like what happened in game 1. Game 1 in Unicorns of Love Gambit was super clean. Like, we smashed them. Like, it wasn't close. But then, yeah, it just kind of fell apart.
Did you hear the way his voice? He was so excited then until it just kind of fell apart actually after that. I don't remember the rest actually. I think it was like, what was it, like May, June, and then July. And here I am now. Yada yada yada. And now I'm in Winterfox. Okay. Yeah. What happened to game 2? There was no game 2 actually. As far as I know. I think it was a 1-game series, and they just we forfeit after that. Yep.
Udyr happened, man. Morgana, Oriana, Udyr running into the back line.
Explain this to me, Leviathan. One thing I can't handle about League of Legends is the way everyone in the scene has like the memory of a goldfish, and they act as though when a champion comes back into the meta, note the keyword I said there, back, as though it's like a brand new champion. They're like, huh, what is he doing? Huh, this is crazy. Who is this champion, Soraka? I've never seen this one before. Meanwhile, it's like, dude, didn't like Udyr fucking borderline invent how... It didn't Diamondprox borderline invent how Udyr is used as an aggressive jungler. What? And he had no clue how to play against that, even what it could do, and he was still just like, the champion is trash. Like, what? How can this be? How can this be?
I don't know. It surprises me too, because I'm on the outside of it as well. I'm not in game, and I'm not orchestrating the calls in the game. So when it collapses inside of the game, when they don't know how to play against it, like I get 60 seconds from lock-in to when I have to leave the stage to prep the guys on strategy. Like I remember one time, I think it was my first game against Elements on Gambit. Froggen last picked an Anivia, and I thought that was the most ridiculous thing ever, because I had just spent a couple months playing on a team with him, and we talked a lot about Anivia, and we played Anivia once or twice in LCS that split, and he broke down. Anivia is really good at this, and the enemy loses to Anivia when they don't respect the wall, and it's not always about getting walled in, but it's about walling them in a way where they have to walk through a choke. And then I just had 60 seconds to break down to the team. Okay, respect the wall, because the wall is what makes Anivia. Don't end up in chokes. And then just I forget what else there was to beat Anivia, but it was really fresh in my mind at the time. And and just I gave them the 60 seconds of that, and then they were able to play around Anivia in the game, and then Anivia was useless against Gambit. So I don't know how they can forget to play, but I think when the meta shifts as much as it does from when a champion leaves, like, because League has evolved a ton, and the way you play League has been changing a ton. So maybe just when they introduce a new champion that plays in a different way, maybe you need to lose to it once or twice to see how the team's effectively using the champion, and then you can adjust accordingly.
Monty, I know we've talked about this on many shows, but obviously now is your finest hour, because now Unicorns of Love really is just, they're going down, 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 and now they're where they should be. Well, I say they should be bottom of the league. But anyway, now they're back. They're heading towards there anyway, Monty. So that's good news. And so now, again, summarize for me what you think of Unicorns of Love as a team right now, Monty, right in this world now. So you don't even have to
basically
give them veiled compliments or anything.
Before, wacky picks that are going on with a very overly aggressive and risky play style. It's not that I think they have bad individual players. I think that they got away with this last season because there were so many rookie players in the EU LCS who didn't have a grasp of how to play the game from a macro perspective. And so it ended up being a lot of basically very highly skilled solo queue games. And now that these teams are no longer rookies and they're starting to settle in, we're seeing the teams that have had better structure in the long run for over the course of the history of the LCS start to do a lot better.
What do you think, Leviathan? Just because this team beat you, don't be talking them up I think they were excellent actually.
They made you play their style. Like, we can go into the game having a game plan. Unicorns Love is going to make you take a fight in the jungle.
How can they make you take a fight? I mean, you were just on fucking Alliance when you never had to take a fight. So How do they work in that sense? What happens when Unicorns of Love, the irresistible force, meets the immovable object of Alliance?
Unicorns of Love versus Alliance? Okay, so Nif and Shook would move into the enemy red jungle to go place a ward at their wraiths, and then a normal team would just, okay, they have vision here, so let's make this move on the other side of the map, or let's move in to sweep this vision. Unicorns of Love would be like, they're in our jungle, fight them now, run at them. Yeah. And then you're just forced to take an engagement there.
You have to take an. You can't just not fight.
Well, if you don't fight, then that implies you're not using any of your skills, and then they would just kill you without you doing damage to them. But if they're going to put a twisted advance onto one of your characters, you're probably going to have to do something back to them.
Like a guy comes up to you in a bar, he pushes you like, "You looking at my girl?" You're like, "Well, guess we're just gonna have to fight this guy then." No, you don't have to. You can walk away. Well, that would imply that I'm not using my skill. Like, I'm not a pussy, dude.
Well,
like, come on.
You have two options.
Yeah?
If someone walks up to you in a bar and tries to fight you, you could turn your back to them and walk or run to the door.
Yeah.
And we can assume that they'll chase after you, or you can stop and fight them. And if the guy, you're gonna turn your back to the guy, he might start punching you in the back of the head, and that's not too fun. You don't want to get punched.
This is actually how you coached Gambit, isn't it? You were telling them shit like this. Like, listen, if unicorns start fighting you, you don't want to turn around. You don't want to get hit in the back as you're running away. Like, Monty, what do you think about this? Do you have to fight Unicorns of Love?
If they force an engagement, like you're saying, he's saying with, something ridiculous like a twisted advance, but at the same time, they're not going to always have the superior level 1 composition. So they're basically relying on that situation on surprising you, because it's not a calculated move unless you're drafting for level 1s every game, and you can't possibly know you're going to get in range of a twisted advance or something like that. But I mean, that's the way that the Chinese teams play too. It's like, instead of when they see somebody on a ward, they just go all in on them, no matter what the circumstance is, pretty much. And that the Korean teams will see somebody on ward, they'll be like, we're not going to fight this. Unicorns 11 Chinese teams see somebody on the ward, and they say, we are definitely going to fight this, right? And we're going to outplay these bitches, and look at my fucking styling on this guy. That's how it works.
Yeah.
Nothing to add, Leviathan?
I mean, he's on point there with that. Like,
was it overplayed, the idea that all Unicorns Love do is try to just cheese you? Like, they're obsessed with finding these cheeses. They're constantly going to try and get the super early fights, even when the laning phase isn't over. Was that oversold? How much of that really was their makeup, do you think?
Well, didn't they switch their style up and start playing AP Kog'Maw and Poke?
Sure.
Yeah. Zone control.
Varus,
so they're not a one-trick pony, but
no, and they are innovative to a degree. People like to ignore all the shit that they did that didn't work, and that was just sort of objectively bad.
They're a unique team. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a Unicorns Love expert, so I'm not going to break them down completely. But yeah, they can force you to take engages. They can switch it up and play poke. Like we spoke about Power of Evil earlier. He plays or was that wasn't on stream?
That wasn't on stream. Keep going.
Yeah,
you're revealing shit again. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah, Power.
Let's talk now about Power of Evil. A player for Unicorns of Love in the mid lane.
He also told us who Gambit's owner was.
Yeah.
But it's not for you guys to know.
No, I don't want to die, Monty. Listen, I'll fuck with Reginald because he ain't doing shit to me, bro. But this Gambit owner could actually end our lives.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's no threat from Reggie, is there?
Not really.
I mean,
just a threat that he won't win Worlds again. So I mean, that's an idle threat to me for him, mate. Anyway, he's keeping tweeting to now. So.
Either that, or he goes and does a vlog making claims with no evidence. I mean, that's it. That's his other trick.
Listen, he's a man of his word. Like, if he says he's never going to do an interview with Travis again, you can be damn sure you'll never see an interview with Travis from him again. Because listen, TSM doesn't even need people like Travis. They can do their own interviews. So again, if they were to break some news, they probably wouldn't use anyone else. They'd use their own services. So enough of that dank meme. Now over to you, Leviathan. The question I have now is this. Everyone remembers the famous now GIF file, because that's how we remember things now. We don't even watch the videos or the any of the content. We just remember GIFs of you saying POE, and then you did a little fist bump with. Actually, it wasn't you who said it. It was actually our friend Dentist, RIP. He's the one who said it, and then you did the fist bump. Okay, you sort of said POE as well. So obviously you're a fan of Power of Evil, right? You must think he's a good player. Even if we're trash on Unicorns Love, you think Power of Evil's a good player.
Yes. I do think Power of Evil plays a good mid lane in the League of Legends game. Although, like a lot of the times when you're on the analyst desk, one of the main priorities is to be entertaining. Like, sure, you're going to drop analysis, but the 150,000 people or however many people watch ULCS finals, they want to be entertained as well. So you got to try to mix in the the entertaining POE with the analysis as well. But
so you're maybe suggesting that for the sake of entertainment, that's show business, folks. You maybe oversold the Power of Evil as some super duper star player.
Didn't hurt anyone.
See, my approach is when I do analysis tests for CSGO, Leviathan, I stick to real analysis. I give the real analysis. I never hype anything. But what I do is, the way I entertain people is I just insult the largest fan base. It's actually inside the formula, the playbook that I took from
How
League,
is this different from what you do in
exactly.
League of Legends?
I just insult the largest fan base and bait them, because actually that ensures the viewers stay on, because they hate me. So I've got the 10 people who love me, the 148,000 who hate me, and then all Riot employees who are in the middle and neutral. They also watch. So that's my approach anyway.
You're just trying to play the heel. I mean, it makes sense. There needs to be a good guy and the bad guy. I'm not going to try to take Monte Cristo's.
I don't want to reveal too much about myself here, Leviathan. But when I was a young boy, I occasionally would watch American wrestling. Not because it's a great sport, not because it's that awesome. But first of all, I love trash talk, and it's full of that. It's theatrics, But also just because of how bizarre it is. It's so exotic if you're from the north of England, right? How weird American wrestling is.
Hey, I'm American. It's fucking weird to me too.
And so I don't know. Just in line with what you're saying here, I don't know if this is going to reveal a lot about you, but one of my favorite wrestlers actually was Scott Hall. That's all that needs to be said there, right? One of the outsiders. That was one of my favorite wrestlers. Okay, because he was
the bad guy,
the shit talker. He fucked all his friends. He was fucking awesome. He was amazing.
Right, but I don't think you get Scott Hall heat. I think you get X-Pac heat, where people just hate you because they hate you and not because of the things that you say.
And I haven't even made a sex tape with anyone, so I haven't even got that going for me, right?
Well, not a public one.
Sounded like someone was commenting on our thing then. Also, Monty would not. Let's face it. If in our partnership that doesn't work, our tag team partnership, Monty would definitely not be Scott Hall. Monty would be he'd probably be I think he'd be Bret Hart, because he'd be going on and on about how he's the best there ever was, the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be, and about how he's the most technical wrestler and all that sort of shit. And everyone will be like, "This bullshit." And also because ironically he gets totally fucked over by his friends. In CLG, the organization he's a part of, CLG, and they actually fuck him completely at the end with no remorse.
Yeah.
So yeah,
the CLG screw job, the Montreal.
Never forget. Yeah. Okay.
Did you spit in Hotshot GG's face?
He should have. He should have, quite frankly.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fun. That's good fun.
No, the sad thing is Monty's a true believer, but we won't get into that right now. He still believes in Hotshot. Put it this way, Hotshot, Monty still does have faith, and that's why he is still here, mate. That's all I need to say about you anyway. So anyway, we'll get to NA later on. So
sure.
I was asking you about Power of Evil. What do you think of Power of Evil? He's supposed to be a breakout star. He got to the finals. He was one game from winning. Him and Febiven and Huni are the breakout stars of last split. So isn't he some world-class talent?
It depends what defines world-class talent.
Go ahead, then.
He's very innovative. He brought out the Kog'Maw. He brought out the mid lane Varus with the Manamune.
Oh, by the way, before you go on, this is just an example. I've made this joke before many times on the show, but it's not even a joke. There's a real stereotype that most Germans just have a terrible sense of humor. It's not really that they do. It's just that culturally the same jokes don't work, okay? The same cadence of how you say a joke, especially sarcasm, doesn't always transmit. The episode with... actually, Nifs has a reasonably good sense of humor, but even he didn't get some of the stuff Monty. So anyway, after... Power of Evil first played Kog'Maw and owned with it when he played the AP Cog. I just did a tweet that said he loves the Cog, and I was pretty obviously implying a quite base joke that he loves the cock. And Power of Evil didn't say anything, he just favorited the tweet. I'm pretty sure he just actually thought I was commenting on the fact that he loves Kog'Maw and that he just played Kog'Maw. In his mind, he was like, yes, I did just play Kog'Maw. I do love it, actually. Thank you, talk show host. Just favorited it.
On analysis story.
Exactly. Yeah, that was it. There was nothing else going on for him at that point. So anyway, he's innovative. What else? What else is good about him?
He plays at a high level of play.
Yeah.
I think you made the point, which I agree with. He's not going to go 15-3 and 15 in a game and hard carry it. He'll go 7-3 and 9. I believe it's something what you said. So you know what you're getting when you start Power of Evil in the mid lane. He has innovative picks. He has a very wide champion pool, and he can play almost, if not all, styles. What do you want on the mid lane? His Syndra is very good at the pick. His Oriana, it's not bad.
Like, here's the weird thing about Power of Evil. Because of his team, people will think of all the players in Unicorns of Love as, essentially, unfortunately, everyone thinks of every player in Unicorns of Love as kickers. They think they're all stupid picks doing crazy shit, just going ham and somehow winning, right? They think every player's like that. Whereas actually, yeah, that's the team identity, and a bunch of the players do that. But actually, what's funny is I actually think that in a weird way facilitates Power of Evil looking awesome, because actually in team fights, he like positions fairly well. He doesn't like go super ham in it. He tends to be like on the outside, let those fucking maniacs just fire it out, and then he kind of just shoots the survivors from the outside like a little sniper, you know. That's my version of Power of Evil, you know. He's not in there just getting his face wrecked and doing damage to other people all the time, you know.
No, he's a smart player, and he shines off of game knowledge, and his mechanics. I'm not saying his mechanics are bad, but he's not pulling out the most insane mechanical plays.
Yeah.
When I just speaking to him, spending time around ULCS, you get to talk to the players, and all conversations I have with Power of Evil are intelligent conversations. He always brings a good aspect, a different thought process to certain things, and it sounds on point with how he thinks about the game. So he's a good player.
No, I think he's a good player. I just don't think he's like a superstar. Like what's funny is if we're just talking LCS Europe, he probably is a star. Actually, he's in that category, but he's just not like. I don't think he's ever going to be like a world. He's never going to be a relevant player in terms of like the world class players in the world. He's not going to be like even a Bjergsen. I don't think. Is that unfair?
I agree with you.
I agree as well. Just the mid lane in Europe is really stacked, so it's hard to compare him amongst his region when he has a lot of really strong mid laners.
Like I made the point during our chat before that one thing I credit him for is he's not like a Keen, okay, where he brings the weird pick, but it's only like going to work for a brief time, and then actually you can't even do it again if you're Keen. And obviously part of why Keen does that a lot is that he doesn't actually have that wide a champion pool. He just plays a lot of weird shit and rotates it around, okay. Now, in terms of Power of Evil, he has like a more stable champion pool, and when he does bring something in, it tends to stick, like it's good. The downside is I've seen so many people take everything he's done that's the cool, innovative thing and just do it better than him, as harsh as that sounds. And that normally, if you're the guy who innovates something and you're really good, you're like the master of it. No one can do that as well as you can. You're always famous and linked with it, whereas he's linked with it to a degree, but I mean, we've seen a million players now play Varus and be very good with it mid lane, and I'll give him credit that there's not that many who've done COG in the West that well, but yeah, I think that's a good. I'm only arguing against you in this sense to give like a balanced view. Like I've let you do the upside of it, and I've done kind of the downside of it. Yeah,
but I know you're a big Power of Evil fan.
I think he's good. I think he's a good player, mate. I like him.
Yeah.
If you ever watch the episodes, I always exclude him from essentially the retardation of all the other players. I never lump him in with them. I think he's doing fine, but he just, in fact, if anything, he knows how to use those maniacs to do that sort of shit.
Yeah, and I think the difference might be is that like some players can pull out mid Vel'Koz, which is not a meta pick, but you like how I referenced the Vel'Koz, yeah. But I think mid Vel'Koz is not good in the meta, but the player has trained it well and can pull it out in that one game, and then in future games the opponents will have had research on the pick and be able to play against it correctly. Whereas Power of Evil just found additional picks to fit within the meta that are good in the current meta. And then he played them just averagely, and then I guess other players picked them up and were able to master them. Whereas he was
Leviathan,
yeah.
Get ready for one of my bold questions, okay? So in 8 months, why am I even doing 8 months? Why not 7 months?
No, I thought we discussed 3 months or 4 months.
No, the problem is that'll be the end of the split, so there'll be no tournaments then. So we're going to have to make it like 7 or 8. So we're going to make it like Spring Split 2016. Spring Split 2016, which of these 3 players will be the best mid laner? So we're going to go Power of Evil, number 1. Froggen, number 2. Betsy, number 3. I'm putting that in there as a joke at the end just to make it a third one. But third one, Betsy. Third one. We can't do Febivin one. We have to keep it realistic. Third one, let me think. It has to be someone reasonable, I guess. Pepinero, yeah. We've got Froggen, Pepinero, and Power of Evil. Which one would be the best for Spring Split 2016? And obviously this is speculation. You won't be held to this. You definitely will be held to this. People will reference this episode. But that's good for us because they'll keep linking it. We'll get the hits.
Okay. Well, see, what I think makes the best player is how well they contribute to a victory. and how well they're actually playing their champion. Maybe KDA. There's a new carry statistic I haven't figured out yet, but that might be relevant. But I think what a lot of people care about is their team winning games of League of Legends.
Sure,
and that's how they define if the player is good or not. So if I had to answer on like the general,
well, in that case, I think we've given you a pretty fair selection here because we haven't given you anyone with an awesome team that's winning all the time. So actually, you pretty much can eliminate a lot of those factors, right? It's going to be still about the player.
Okay, so I'm gonna write this down. We have Froggen, who's on Elements, Pepinero, who's on Giants, and then who was the last one again?
Power of Evil. That was the original one. Remember?
Yeah,
okay.
Power of Evil. Yeah.
I believe he's on Unicorns of Love.
Yeah, Unicorns of Love, I believe, and that's in the EU LCS.
Yeah.
No. I think that UOL and Power of Evil will be the mid laner that will be on the team that is the highest rated, like in the standings, or will be winning the most games. But I think but the Elements roster is so weird. Like, I don't know what direction that team is going to go in.
You have some faith in that team.
Hard.
I'm sorry, you don't even know who's going to be on Elements next month, Jordan.
Right, that's one of the deciding factors. Like, okay, if the Elements roster, I don't even know. This is the most insane. There is no way anyone could possibly predict this correctly with like the right justification and have it actually come out that way. I'm just going to go Power of Evil on Unicorns of Love. He will be on the team that's winning the most games of League of Legends then. Yeah, that's my answer. Power of Evil.
What do you think, Monty? Which of the three do you pick?
I would go with Power of Evil as well. I'm not. I want to take the Hail Mary with Pepinero, but I think Power of Evil is going to be around for a little bit.
Listen, Power of Evil is good, but first of all, I'm not as faithful to the idea that Unicorns Love is going to be good in that amount of time. And also, listen, I'm a ride or die type of guy. I'm just going. I'm going to stick with I'm doubling down. Well, I'm trebling down at this point in time. I'm just going to treble down on Froggen. Fuck it, let's go to the ends. Like, it doesn't matter at this point.
Yeah, you got your ticket. You've been riding that train for a while. Might as well ride it all the way out.
So here's the question then. Unicorns of Love at the moment is in a 3-way tie for 5th place with a 5-7 record, so a losing record. Do you think Unicorns of Love, I mean, that's still like, it's a tie, but that's still a playoff team. Is that the right level for Unicorns of Love? Like, are they going down more, do you think, after this? A team's going to overtake them? What do you think?
I think Europe as a whole is separated into like 3 groups.
Give me the groups.
I think Fnatic, H2K, and Origen can all take games off of each other during the given day because they've reached like a...
Even though Idiot's going to be like, but they can't, Fnatic's never lost. Oh, you mean obviously like they could. They've only played fucking like one best of one, you downsy. Anyway,
right.
keep going.
Easy there,
just keep going, yeah.
That's aggressive. But I think Giants, Gambit Gaming, and Unicorns of Love are really hit and miss depending on what draft they got basically just what draft they got. They can win against all the other teams that aren't in the top 3. And then I think Copenhagen Wolves, SK Gaming, Elements, and Rocket are kind of grouped at the bottom. Just teams trying to find their identity, trying to find how they can most efficiently win games of League of Legends. And then you can kind of just shuffle them around. Maybe with Copenhagen Wolves being more at the bottom with their 2 new recent roster changes. I basically just see EU lining up that way. So Unicorns love if they get the favorable draft that they want, and they're playing mechanically sound. They're not making blunders or tilted or choking. Then they can take games off of the bottom 7 in the ULCS.
So listen, I realise we're 2/3 of the way through the split, the regular portion. But with that said, those groups correspond almost identically to the standings right now. So these standings are not going to change from what they are right now. Everyone's going to stay within those 3 groups, basically, right?
I don't expect one of the teams to skyrocket up. I don't expect H2K, Origen, or Fnatic to tank. The lower teams will continue to take games off of each other, but lose the teams ahead of them. The top 3 at the top will continue to beat all the other teams that aren't the other 2 in the top 3. And I think the teams in the middle will compete against each other in the middle, lose to the teams in the top, and then beat the bottom 4.
What do you think, Monty, of this general view of EU LCS?
I think it's pretty well I think it's pretty clear who the top 3 teams are, and I doubt that's going to be changing much over the course of the season. There simply isn't enough time left. Fnatic, H2K, and Origen have now had an entire spring season to get themselves together, and even teams like other teams have made roster changes, and they still need more time to gel. So it seems really unlikely that any of these teams is going to be upset in the playoffs.
Right, let's stop talking about the trash teams, and let me ask you then about this 3-team group that you created there, Jordan, where it's Origen, H2K, and Fnatic. So let's start with Origen. Like, they obviously have some performances that are super explosive, and everyone's like, oh my god, maybe they can even be the best team. Hey, maybe they can challenge Fnatic for the top spot. What do you actually make of Origen overall? Like, what strengths and weaknesses do they have?
They have good players in every role. Mithy is very smart about the game and is a good leader. Niels has shown to be a really good AD carry out of the Challenger League. And then, of course, Soaz Amazing and Peke have proven themselves before.
How good do you actually think Niels is, though? You actually think he's like where would he be in AD carries in Europe? I mean, he's just coincidentally the best, and he's on one of the best teams.
The support influences the AD carries play a lot. And I think he has it helps him more than it hurts him that Mithy's on his team than if he had a weaker support for his team.
Yep.
But he does his job. He's a good AD carry. If I had to rate him against other AD carries, Reckless is better than him or equal to him. He's probably equal to Hjarnan. And then, just looking down the list, I think he plays better than the rest of the AD carries in the league.
To be fair, the 3 people who you're talking about right now all have the gods of support playing with them.
Yeah, of Yellow Star,
Kessing,
and those like the 3 best
yeah.
supports in the West right
and
now.
Mithy.
Yeah.
So all these AD carries who just coincidentally happen to be best all have the best support playing with them as well. Gee,
they
what
play
are
in
the
the
odds?
same lane as each other. Like, I'm pretty sure the play of the AD carry is influenced by the support. I mean,
Mate, do you remember last season that guy Forgiven? So I guess N-rated must have been the best support, right? No?
No.
Oh, the pennies dropped. Oh, okay. No,
Okay,
N-rated was quite bad, wasn't he? But Forgiven was balling out of control. He was like, give me the ball and get the fuck out my way. I'm going in with authority to slam it in your fucking face. Anyway, so,
Yeah.
really?
I mean,
does it always dictate that if the AD carry is really good, then the support's very good and they're both very good in the same lane?
no, it's not always that way. I'm
Okay.
just saying it helps. If your
It
support
definitely
is
helps.
good,
Okay.
if your support is good at League of Legends, your AD carry will play at a higher level than if he had a support that wasn't good. Now, if your AD carry is Forgiven and he's really good at the game, maybe you can just give him any support and he'll play well.
Apparently not, but okay.
But I think it differs case by case. But yeah, having a good support helps. Because you have to play laning phase with them, right?
Newsflash.
So explain this to me,
Sorry,
Leviathan.
it's very simple, but I don't know why we're making a big deal out of it. Like,
So, okay,
it's called
listen.
the dual lane for a reason.
This is going to be a very easy topic to. I'm going to give you what sounds like an absolute softball here, mate. So you've just described that the 3 best teams in the league have the best support and the best AD carry, right? So they have these star players. Now the worst team in EULCS is 2-10. They're Copenhagen Wolves. So Freeze isn't as good as those AD carries, any of them, right? He's on the worst team.
I like how you worded that, though. You're trying to make me say yeah or something, but
I'm just wondering what you're going to say, mate.
No, Freeze is a good AD carry, but I mean his support is just Sweet Koss, who's fresh out of Challenger.
Here's the way my system works, Leviathan. If someone tells me, sometimes I'm kind of crazy, I just stick my dick in marmalade. I'm like, try a toaster. That's my approach, okay, basically, to interviewing, okay? So that's all I'm trying to do here, mate. So what do you think? Freeze versus Hjarnan versus Niels versus Reckless?
But it's not as straightforward as that, though. It's not straightforward like that, though. It's not like it's mid lane, and it's a combination. Okay. You can't look at them individually. You gotta look at the two. It's like tag teams, like the you can put Kane with the Undertaker, and I'm sure it's a great tag team, and if you put Kane with the worst support, like I guess
Kane is Freeze, right? That's what you're trying to say here, yeah? Okay.
Yeah. You put him with a bad tag team partner, maybe he looks worse, But what if Freeze played with Yellow Star?
What if? Speculate. What do you think would happen?
They would win games of League of Legends.
Would he be better than Reckless?
Okay.
By the way, Freeze used to play with Mythy, remember? Who's now the bot lane partner of
Yeah, but
Niels.
I didn't watch the NIP expansion.
Okay, fair enough.
They never made LCS, so I don't know. Maybe like, oh yeah, I know. I remember Mythy's the choke star though. When the game matters,
Yeah.
Mythy doesn't show up, or maybe he's fixed it. But I remember Mythy.
Yeah,
just
maybe.
didn't show
We'll
up
see.
I know Mythy didn't show up in big games, so.
Okay. Monte knows nothing about really lane dominant support players who seem super awesome. They lead the lane, they shot call, but then they just don't show up in playoff games. He doesn't know fuck all about that, mate. Don't worry about it.
No, I don't think there's any players in NA that are like that.
Right.
No, but yeah, I don't know. It's so hard to tell, like, especially as like a coach that, you know, my goal is to look at map rotations. I'm not really, you know, investing too much time looking into how people.
Hey, you should be a coach, Monty.
No, I tried that.
Yeah. Anyway.
Thanks.
Yeah,
It wasn't for me.
Yeah, you could coach, I think. But
Okay, so aside from Niels, I sidetracked you there. I tried to bring you into one of my traps.
I know,
Involving
I
a toaster.
saw it.
So, aside from the bot lane there, what do you think of the other players?
Which team?
Origen?
Oh yeah, Origen, amazing, competent jungler, knows.
Perfect name, right? Perfect name.
Yeah, amazing's amazing. But you know, he knows what a game plan is and can execute it, and to get his team ahead. And then his solo laners are Soaz and Peke, who have played at the top level for a very long time. So it's not surprising that, you know, they're playing at the top of the league in Europe. It's just a good team. Like they execute game plans. They have strong mechanical players in all their roles. Looks like they have pretty good teamwork. Like they're a good team.
Monty, don't hate just because he used to be on TSM, but amazing. Obviously, his team's been doing really well. He's obviously
He's been
having
playing
some
much
good
better, yeah.
games. What do you think of him now?
I think he's vastly improved over his TSM days.
I mean, in this team, Leviathan just listed like every player on the team's just really good.
I think amazing.
But then he actually did say just competent for amazing, so I like that.
Yeah,
That's like the sort of shit I say, but the difference is I say that
he's-
the guy's dog shit, and then everyone's
he's-
like, oh my god.
He's
Anyway.
pretty good. I do think that from watching some of Origin's games, he has problems like when he falls behind, but that's kind of a team-wide problem that's happening on Origin right now, where they're so reliant on kind of winning some early game skirmishes that they don't have a lot of comeback potential because they just keep fighting and they keep skirmishing even when they're losing. So that's problematic.
Do you want to
And
know?
they also-
Yeah, keep going.
They kind of threw the draft with the Vayne pick. Was it this week or last week? I forget. And I have a horrible memory, but I know they picked the Vayne when the Vayne was just absolutely useless, and that cost them the game. So I think one of the issues they throw in a game to draft. They lost a game to Fnatic, which is acceptable, and I don't know who their third loss was to, but they beat everyone else. So
They lost to Rocket.
how the hell did they lose to Rocket?
I'm gonna guess Snook Duck went ham. Are you ready?
I'm
ready,
like
mate?
I'm looking up the eSportspedia pick and ban. I want to see if it was a draft issue or not. But yeah, like
No. That's what they do. If they start to lose skirmishes, and honestly, Rocket's one of those teams that you kind of don't want to skirmish early because then you have to fight Jankos early on, and that's not generally a good idea.
Yeah, no, Jankos is a really good player. He's one of the star performers on Rocket.
So here's an interesting topic for me to bring up, aka I'm just bragging again. So if you remember, there used to be this discussion last year in Season 4 where it was obvious at some point in time that if Fnatic wants to get better, hey, maybe Cyanide's a player they could improve because they had all these other good players at other positions. And I always said, hey, why not take Jankos and put him onto Fnatic? Give him the best solo laners in Europe, sort of. And obviously, Amazing now has a great solo lane, historic level solo lanes, and he's doing quite well. He's playing some of the best games of his career. Meanwhile, Jankos, even through all the shit he's been through Rocket, still a really good player. I mean, Amazing's not a supportive player like Cyanide. Now, the reason everyone said at the time, but that might not work, maybe that wouldn't work, is because they were like, but Cyanide brings so much to the team and he's such a supportive player. And hey, maybe he's the reason why Soaz and Expeke are good, because he's so unselfish and he just gives everything to them and he helps them and sets them up all the time. What do you think on this topic? How do you think it weighed out in the end? I mean, personally, imagine if fucking Jankos was playing right now on Origin. That would be like game over.
Well,
Give him those solo laners, mate.
I mean, they're still lacking, I think, an element of shot calling. Certainly, they're a talented team, but I'm not not entirely sold on those guys yet, as it were.
Which team? You're not
Origin.
sold on
Origin.
Origin? Oh, okay. I don't know. If you put Jankos on Origin, I think
they'd be fine, but again, I don't know how much shot calling Jankos brings, and to me, that's like Origin's biggest problem right now is that there are a bunch of good players who will outplay most of their opponents. But with that said, when they can't outplay their opponents or when they mess up, they don't have solid strategy of how to come back into a game.
Has anyone ever heard of a team like that in North America? Anyway, jokes aside, keep going. Johnny, comments here, Leviathan.
Yeah, that sort of thing comes from how the team wants to figure it out. I don't think you can just bring in a player and suddenly all these problems be fixed. So if you want to say, how would Origin do with Jankos? I have no idea. Like, sure, like maybe Jankos. I don't know if Jankos does a shot calling in Rocket. I don't know if he does. But if, let's say Jankos is a shot caller for Rocket, then you just bring him in and do all of his shot calling in Origin. Well, then he the rest of the team would have to agree with his direction on how he sees the game of League of Legends that he played, and they'd have to work around his shot calling. Maybe it works, but it's just there's too many maybes for that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. It really depends on team dynamic, in my opinion.
What about H2K? What do you think of them, Leviathan? H2K.
Good team.
I like them a lot.
Really good team. Ryu's Jace was disgusting this week. Even against a Braum is supposed to be the counter to poke, but Ryu is still finding those alleys to drop shock blasts onto the back line. They play their objectives pretty well. They seem to have an issue with ending the game, but it just was their 30-minute win turned into a 40-minute win because they didn't, or the 40-minute win turned into a 50-minute win, whatever it was, because they were making some mistakes. Like I think Hjarnan got caught out when they were sieging the tower, but then they all just backed off and reset, took the siege again 2 minutes later and took it. They play all their lanes solid. Kasing's really good. Kasing turned that team around. Probably seems like a competent coach just from speaking with him backstage at LCS. So yeah, just a solid team. Ryu's playing really well. Odwamne is a rock in the top lane. Lulex is, doing what he needs to the team, dropping wards, setting up plays. Yeah, it's just a good team. No real weak points from my perspective.
Yeah, H2K is kind of like Bizarro Origin in that they're much more focused on the strategy in the game than anything else. But at the same time, when we talk about that strategy, it how can I describe this? It's like they don't have the same level of individual talent. Not to the same degree, at least, that Origin has, or kind of the veteran knowledge that Origin possesses to play out these skirmishes. So we see them falling behind. Like, they got straight up out skirmished by Fnatic in the early game.
I got to stop you right there. You're wrong. What do you mean they don't have the same level of talent? Remember, they've got one of the best bot lanes. They've got one of the best top laners. They've got one of the best mid laners.
I think they just play together. I think they play together well. I don't think that when we look at a player like Odoamne, who is a very team-focused top laner, but we're not going to say that he is at the same skill level on individually as some other players, right? He's just good at playing with his team, which is a valuable skill.
I may be misremembering this, so don't quote me on this, and I realize people may hate her for this. But I think I saw a comment from Kelsey at some point on Twitter where she thinks Odoamne is the best European top laner. So not everyone thinks that way, Monty.
Well, I'm sorry.
I don't think
over
that's true.
Huni.
No, it goes Huni.
Huni is so good.
Huni, then Cabochard, and then you can argue the rest, in my opinion.
I know you didn't know this, Monty, but it turns out that actually Ryu's pretty good on Jace. Like, even in that game they lost to SK, he was still, like, phenomenal. Like, they were dog shit, but he was really good.
Yeah.
I know you didn't know that, though, so it's news to you. It's, news reaching you on the Korean shores here of this player.
Yeah, there you go.
This unknown player, Ryu.
I was just waiting for the LCS to tell me all about these players.
Apparently,
he plays a good Jace. Like, I watched the game where I forget who they played against, but yeah, his most recent Jace game.
Unicorns of Love, mate.
Unicorns of Love.
It was beautiful. It was lovely to watch.
He was curving them shock blasts around Hylissang's
smashing the fuck out of shitty unicorns alive. It was great. I was
playing baseball.
It was awesome. It was like what deserved to happen to them, basically.
He's a good Jace player.
Okay, so beyond that, Unicorns of Love. Like, what holds Unicorns of Love back, Leviathan, from just being the best European team?
I don't know. Unicorns Love.
Oh no, I mean H2K. I said the wrong name there. My bad. I meant H2K.
Oh.
What's holding H2K? Obviously, that's a ludicrous comment. What's holding Unicorns? They themselves, and they exist. Like, yeah, there's all the other teams that are good. Like, what about H2K though? Why can't H2K just be the best team in Europe?
Yeah, I think it's the skirmishing and the team fighting. Their map rotations are really good. Their gameplay execution is good. But they can get out skirmished when they have a gold lead. Teams can beat them with a gold deficit in fights, and that's what they need to work on.
And that's just team play?
How do you improve on that? I think you play more. I think the players can get better at pressing their buttons and maybe do some VOD analysis of team fights and skirmishes, but yeah, that's their weakness. But damn, they can ward and move around a map really well.
So explain this to me then. If they're having problems in team fights, and we know Ryu's like a star player, that guy's amazing. You can't talk shit about him. But you were like hyping up Yarnan before about how good he is. I mean, he's the fucking AD carry. He's supposed to do damage in team fights, right? So what's the problem? You got one of the best AD carries. He just goes to work, kills everyone in the team fight. Problem solved.
He plays Jinx and stands really far back, and then launches these rockets that hit the backline after.
He's just like Deft, right? Yeah, he's just like the sort of the European Deft, as Monte always calls him.
Well, Ryu always
said that, liar.
Ryu always manages to find a shock blast onto the backline that pushes their AD carry out of the fight, or just Ryu can influence a team fight well, and then Yarnan cleans up. Yarnan plays well in laning phase. They don't have the best team fighting in the league.
In a world in which Yarnan didn't play for H2K, he plays for Copenhagen Wolves, or he plays for SK Gaming, or he plays for Unicorns of Love, you think he would still be a good player? Would he be considered a top AD carry?
Or he plays for H2K before Kasing joins?
You said it, not me, mate.
We can reference that. I don't know.
Sure, yeah. What did you think?
I see Yarnan is this piece of silly putty that Kasing just took and was like, okay, I'm gonna move this piece here, move this piece there, and then now he just has this sweet AD carry. Like Kasing helped build Yarnan into what he is now, and Yarnan plays a good game of League of Legends. Okay. Like if you drop him onto a different team, maybe he's not performing the way he is now.
Let's just hope that
Kasing really helps him.
Yarnan never turns on Kasing, kills him, and then immolates himself on a piece of an iceberg floating away. None of you fucks even get that. That's how bad League of Legends fans are. Shame on you for not knowing anything about literary references. Anyway, I'm not even going to explain it. That's how dank that was. Anyway, let's go. So the last team I want to talk about today before we move off Europe is actually Fnatic, obviously. I've saved them till the end. Now, what have we missed?
Okay. I wanted to mention that Gambit didn't play Kalista, and that's a huge issue with their draft. They need to get that fixed.
Bring it on. We're live right now. Bring it on.
Okay. So yeah, Gambit needs to play more Kalista.
Yeah, you just said that part. Keep going to the next part.
Yeah,
now.
No,
Okay.
I got more notes.
Okay.
I got this shit ready. SK's drafts make very little sense, and their level ones are absolutely
let's have some
horrible.
reactions to this shit. It's not just like cliff notes on what you think of Europe. So first comment.
Put out your Twitter, Leviathan. Jesus.
First comment that they should play more Kalista. Monty, what do you think? By the way, I'll tell you right now.
I think Europe was so far behind in understanding that Kalista was a good champion to pick. Like last season.
Well, I mean, Imp doesn't exist, mate, so don't worry about it.
It was, it was being picked all the time in Korea. It was like first pick worthy, and Europe's just sitting there just letting it fall all the way through drafts. They finally kind of gotten their shit together on that front, but it took a really long time.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is, Leviathan? Why not pick Kalista?
Well, I
with all these wonderful AD carries in the league. Anyway, keep going.
The reason we didn't practice Kalista right away is because Pinoy's training computer didn't have like I'm not a computer guy, so I don't know what the term for the monitor is, but like a maximum refresh rate monitor, and he felt like when he was playing on the lower of monitor with the refresh rate, he couldn't play Callista.
It's over. The West's never going to even do anything at Worlds, Monty. I'm done. I'm out of here. See ya. We don't need to discuss this shit anymore. It's over. It's fucking over, mate. In Korea, they can at least set up the fucking monitor before they start playing properly. What is even going on here?
So what we had to do is like get him a new power supply or something. So that, anyways, that's why we didn't pick it up. Yeah, Callista's a good champion. Like even on paper, you can look at Callista and just be like, yeah, this is the most disgusting champion Riot's ever created. But it was really late to be picked up in Europe. I agree.
So okay,
I don't know why.
So here's the question: you just said Gambit. You didn't say Forgiven. Now here's the thing: I've spoken to Forgiven about this in private, and I've even said to him, just play, because one of the discussions when we were having on like why don't you carry the game, why can't you be the star Gambit, was this idea like, oh, the meta doesn't suit me right now, there's nothing you can play that can carry. And I was like, how about Callista? It's like, I can't remember what even reasoning he gave. It wasn't that great though, I'll tell you that. It was something like maybe it was like risky at some point in the game, or like you couldn't get at a certain, like you had, I think maybe you had to team fight. Well, I can't fucking remember what his idea. I hear so many crazy excuses from all these toxic players that I'm friends with, mate. I can't remember them all, mate. I even my mind gives up eventually. But whatever the reason was, it didn't quite work. Especially since he then kept going playing fucking Corki and shit, and then Sivir. Finally, he broke down and even played Sivir over Callista. Like, I suspect, you want to know, just from knowing Forgiven, here's what my guess is as to why he won't play Callista. So Callista is known to be like a mechanically intensive champion. And if you're really good mechanically, you can dominate on Callista and you can shit on people. So my suspicion is that he has played it a bunch and that somehow he just can't get the hang of it and he's just not that good in lane in terms of like harassing and fighting. So as a result, that's why he won't play it, because he doesn't want to look shit, and that would obviously break his whole like image, you know. His whole image is that even like, oh, they're holding me back, man. Like he's like the young, strong black man who's being held down by the white man. Like, oh, these motherfuckers won't let me get in the game. Look at me riding this bench. Like he's like the angry young black man. So if it was actually brought forth that he actually tried to do an accounting course and he just failed miserably on it, then where would his whole claim be, you know? Well, Forgiven X, where would your claim be then, sir?
Right, but that clashes.
You're supposed to win by any means necessary, mate. Anyway, keep going.
It clashes with his opinion of like, I'll do anything for the team to win, which he's been saying a lot recently. Like, if my team wants me to pick
no, his opinion was more like that Meatloaf song. Like, I would do anything for us, but not that. And that was playing Sivir and playing in a team-oriented fashion where I don't give up, where I don't take all the mid laners farm. Like, it had like a square bracket there, so it wasn't as catchy as the Meatloaf version, but it was sort of similar, you know. Like, but I won't do that. Okay.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. But yeah, I don't think he cares that much about his image that he'd go as far as to not play it like one of the most broken AD carries.
It's my speculation.
Right now. But it could be, you know, he could not be playing it for that reason. But yeah, maybe he just isn't good at the champion.
So why should he play it?
Occam's razor and say he's not good at the champion.
Why won't he play it? Do you think? Like, why should he play it? Why? Well, you said that they should.
Well, everyone should, because it gives you so much control over objectives, and it's a huge lane bully that you can snowball the game with. It's very powerful.
You know, people have a feeling, Leviathan, about Monty, that one of his problems is that he like tunnels in on certain things that he thinks are like the way the game should be played, and instead of fitting it to the player always, he just thinks like, this is the right way to play, you should do it.
But Callista is a lane bully. That's what Forgiven wants to play.
So there's like a famous song by Cypress Hill called "Everybody Must Get High." Now I don't need to break down an in-depth analysis of the lyrics, because essentially it's described in the topics, okay? And the lyrics go, "Everybody must get high." Like, I feel like Monty's approach is like, everybody must play Sivir. It's like stuff like that over and over. Everybody must play Callista. You know, it's like, why should they play Callista, Levan? Do you have a better reason than Monty?
No, it's right. The Callista's a lane bully. Callista. You can't take objectives away from a Callista when she has her run stacks up on an objective, so it removes any possibility of stealing. So if you create an opportunity where you're able to assume vision control over a dragon or a baron, and you just get some auto attacks in, you have defense against the wall flash from the enemy.
Oh, I think he also didn't like the fact that the Ren stacks are a component of how you play the shot. Like, I think he didn't like the idea that you couldn't just do like insane damage super quick on someone. You had to like build it up over time, so your team had to work with you and keep you alive. Something like that. Like, you had to stay alive to be able to do it enough. Does that fly at all?
That's not the case anymore now. When you build the BF sword first item with the BT, like, you have this insane amount of damage from your Q. Like, in the old build with the Hurricane Blade, yeah, sure, you needed like 8 or 9 stacks before you could rip someone apart. But the AD scaling on that E is high enough that you can, you know, with 4 or 5 stacks do moderate damage, so that excuse isn't good anymore.
I feel like Forgiven maybe is another one of those guys who went to that ancient bazaar and he got the cursed monkey paw, and all he asked for was like, I want to be the best AD carry in Europe, and they were like, okay, but are you sure that's exactly what you want? And he's like, yeah, just make me the best AD carry and I'll do the rest. And then they were like, you can be the best AD carry, but only on 3 champions for your whole career. For the rest of your career, you will be what you are now before I make you into this great AD carry. A random CS player from Greece who obviously could never be the best player, but I will now work my magic. And then the curse kicked in. Like, it worked for a while, Monty, but like Cinderella, when the clock struck 12, all of a sudden his champion pool turned back into a pumpkin. The horses were mice. And now Kasing is out there.
Also, the other part of
Kasing picked up a crystal slipper, and he's searching all his days to find the person who can fit this slipper.
The other part of the curse, was that he was going to be a toxic motherfucker that no one could stand to play with.
I think he was already probably like that anyway. I don't think that you can't even blame the curse on that, mate. It's above and beyond that. Yeah, what do you think, Leviathan?
About Forgiven's toxicity?
Anything.
Is that what you're asking me?
Anything,
do you
mate.
want me to comment?
I purposely leave it vague sometimes to see where you go.
I don't know, man.
So, okay, that was the first note. What was the second note? After the Callista thing, it was something about... Who was it after them? Unicorns of Love, was it?
Well, they got a free win against... Oh, no, it was SK. It was SK.
SK.
Their draft.
Yep. Their
draft is... I don't understand it. And their level 1 was really bad. It seems like lack of preparation. They could prepare more going into their matches and maybe have a more solidified game plan.
Wait a second. Leviathan, I'll have to remind you, they not only have a coach, but they have a sports psychologist. And as soon as you get a sports psychologist, remember, there's no levels to sports psychologists. Unlike players and coaches, every sports psychologist is a genius who will figure out everyone's problems and is like Freud reincarnated. So they have a coach and a sports psychologist. So what's the problem? Why aren't they just rocking the league, right?
Well, isn't there... No,
the coach is the sports psychologist.
Yeah, I know Lucas. I've worked with Lucas.
Yeah, he's the coach, mate.
Yeah.
I like Lucas.
Yeah, he's actually very good at conflict resolution, but I mean, I don't know.
Okay, and coaching?
Well,
nobody knows though.
His game knowledge isn't great. At least it wasn't at Worlds when I was working with the team last year, and I was in boot camps with SK for the entire Worlds boot camp, helping them.
You were there for a couple of weeks.
Yeah. So, I think Lucas is good at what Lucas does, but as for serving in a coaching capacity, as a role model and as a person with an ability to control like their schedule and stuff, I'm sure he's fine. But in terms of like doing analysis or other stuff, I don't think he'd probably be very useful there.
I can agree with that.
What do you think of the actual team, though, Leviathan? I mean, most people I know have no faith in this team. In fact, I don't know anyone who thinks SK is good or is going to be good. I don't know anyone.
This is pretty bold, but I think that there's the reason why Innerflame left was that Innerflame wanted to take the team in a specific direction that he felt would improve the roster and give them a greater chance of performing at Worlds, because Innerflame has been known to find the players in Challenger, put together teams that perform well. He has a great track record at it. And I believe he left the team because management would not let him select the roster. And Alex wanted Candy Panda back. Yeah. And Innerflame disagreed with that and then left the team because of it. And I think you can see that the current iteration of the SK roster is not a strong team. And I think that's...
Do you have any speculation as to what direction he might have wanted to go in?
No, I did not hear of any players he wanted to pick up or drop.
If you had to guess, what do you think it would have been? I mean, I'm guessing it would be based around the jungler and the mid laner myself.
I think maybe he disagreed with picking up Candy Panda, but that's like I literally have no idea. I have no insight at all into the situation. I would just be if I was the SK manager, I would look to pick up maybe a young talent instead of old Candy Panda. And then I know Fox is good. He would have kept Fox. I don't know if he would have switched out Freddy, and I know he would have kept Svenskeren. Just from speaking to him, how he feels about his own players over the course of the season. But that's all I would know.
Is there any bright spot in SK? Like, is Sven Skaren still good? Has he gone downhill?
Fox and Sven Skaren are still fine.
Yeah, Fox is one of the, from words of Interplay, one of the hardest working players that was on that roster. While other players were playing other games, he was watching VODs of either himself or other top laners taking notes and then translating those notes into a solo queue play. So Fox is a great talent, and he'll continue to get better. And he plays a solid game of League of Legends. But yeah, and Sven Skaren still walks into enemy jungles and takes their jungle. And
that Nuke Duck's not very good, is he? But meanwhile, that Fox is a wonderful player. Get out my face, mate. I judge players based on whether their team wins and what their role is in with it. Yeah, Fox is a good player. I think he'll continue to improve. Nuke Duck, dog shit. Then you look at the standings, like one has won 5 games, one has won 3, and one is doing way better. How do you resolve that equation, Leviathan? Fox is a good player, Nuke Duck's not that good. That moment's come, hasn't it? That moment that everyone worries about when they comment on the inside, and it's here. It's in your face right now. Now let's resolve this conflict, mother lover.
I'm trying to figure out how to put my thoughts into words without saying the wrong thing. I
don't even bother with that. I just get the thoughts into words. I end it there.
Yeah.
Yes. You can only expect so much.
Well, no, because I know you, Duncan, and if I word a sentence incorrectly and use the wrong word, you'll go, oh yeah, you said this one time, so this has to be your opinion. Okay. And then if you say something that contradicts this other opinion, but you said this the first time, so you got to be careful.
I just break them on the cross. That's my approach. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah. So. But I don't know. I think Fox works hard. He plays well. His Katarina was absolutely disgusting. In the weeks leading up to playoffs, and I think that you have like moments of brilliance in Nuke Duck where he can absolutely carry a team. I just think it's different. I don't know. If you want me to go back and change my opinion, sure.
I'm just wondering. I'm trying to see where you are here. Okay.
Okay, I guess I'm not.
I'm like an LSD trip, mate. You go into it with all these conceptions and paradigms, and then they're shattered, and it's how you rebuild yourself afterwards. Whether you're a broken man left weeping, and you have to coach TSM for a few years, or whether you actually like rise like a phoenix, like Froggen, and finally get your job back again. Anyway.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so I think Fox works hard. He plays a solid game of League of Legends.
Fair enough.
And yeah, and
do you have any more notes? Next note.
Yeah.
I like how you always wait. I like how you always just say a game of League of Legends. Like it's so Canadian. You're like, is that
plays a solid game of League of Legends, eh?
It's a solid game of ice hockey, eh?
Yeah. No,
he's a good player. Got a lot of spirit in him. Like, good heart.
He's a good player, man.
First into the gym, last out of the ice.
But I think mainly because it covers.
He's a fighter. He battles for his teammates and his family. He's not a fucking hoser.
He gets those pucks. He's hard on the stick. You know, he's gonna dig for those pucks in the corner. You know, he's a two-way player, and you can really rely on him out there on 4-on-4 and on the penalty kill. You know, but I don't know.
Next note.
Next note is Shook played really well in Copenhagen Wolves, and it was nice to see him pulling off very challenging mechanical plays, even though his top laner and support were under-leveled by 2 levels to their enemy counterparts.
If you had to speculate, why do you think Shook was kicked out / left Elements? What would your guess be?
Oh, he was upset. Like, he didn't...
Oh, he mad right now, yeah.
He didn't enjoy the team. Like, it was work to him. It wasn't fun to him. And
so he came and joined fucking Copenhagen Wolves. What is this world?
Maybe he just ran out of money. And
maybe Sisyphus did realise that actually there was joy to be taken in pushing that boulder up the mountain every day, only for it to roll back down again. And that was his final triumph. See, Shook, I'm sure Shook is a student of Camus' The Myth of Sisyphus. That's the real reason, right, Leviathan?
Well, I don't know. I like Shook. I think he plays the game well, but I think his team lost confidence in him as well. Towards the end of his time on Elements.
The old CLG problem. They lost the trust. Come on, man. Where's the love? That's the CLG motto. Like, where's the love? Like,
I mean, it is a meme, but it is an important aspect of the game. If you don't trust your jungler to perform well,
I mean, if my jungler is shit, I probably wouldn't trust him. So, I would lose trust. That's the CLG problem. What they didn't realize is a bunch of those players weren't actually that good and were chokers, and that's why people didn't trust them. Because when someone fucking chokes away constantly, you don't tend to be like, hey, I'll fall back and you'll catch me, right? I mean, I know you did let that other guy, you didn't catch him and he fell down some stairs and became paralyzed from the waist down, but you'll definitely catch me, right? And Link's like, sure thing. So we don't have much time here. Because again, one of the two people is big shot, like only has a certain time, and even then, he doesn't make time, like extra time for friends and discussion and a salon type environment. He's all just about money and bills and all that shit. So that guy, whoever it might be me. Who knows? Viewers, we'll never know who it is because I'll never tell you. Whoever that guy is has to go in a few minutes. So we'll talk now about Korea and shift the discussion to Korea. Now, Leviathan, what's interesting is to start out with, you were saying earlier in the Alliance discussion that sometimes you would show like LCK picks. First of all, there was no LCK there, you traitor. It was OGN, and there never has been an LCK. It's still
What's
champions.
OGN?
Exactly.
What's OGN?
They've paid you. They've forgotten to him, Monty. This bastard. Anyway, that's how they healed it. When they took him and Pinoy into the mind erasing section, that's why they're now friends. They don't even know. It's like Eternal Sunshine of Spotless Mind. They don't even know that they were bitter enemies, Monty, because they've been through the rehabilitation clinic. Anyway, so you said before that you showed some OGN pick and bans, but I remember asking you after playoffs, like if you watched OGN, and you actually told me you didn't really. Like your coaching method was more like you just figured the game out yourself and then you applied that to the game. So, but was that inaccurate? Have you changed now? Do you watch OGN all the time now?
I watch it more than I used to, mainly because it was. I found it as let's play a game of League of Legends, and let's look at the areas in which we failed to perform correctly, right? Yeah. And so let's say either we have a death or we take a really long time to take a tower. Then I saw it as, well, if League of Legends has these specific rules and we need to take a tower this way, what are the options available to us as a team with the champions we've picked, or how the map is set up that is the most optimal way for us to take this tower? And I didn't need to watch OGN to see how they take specific towers, because I felt like that was a very case-by-case basis, and you can't just blindly copy it. But as far as it goes now, I'm watching more of the Korean League, the LCK. I'm enjoying watching the games because I think they're at a pretty high level most of the time if you get the right matchups with the top teams. I think there's a bottom three that Samsung, IM, and Sonic Boom that.
And Anarchy, don't forget them.
They play aggressive though. I love watching them though. I like watching Anarchy play. But yeah, it's a fun league to watch, and I also like to watch how the top teams like SKT, KU, and CJ exploit the bottom part of the league, because it kind of gives me an idea of like, in NACS, we're not playing at the highest level of League of Legends.
You done right.
So I like to see how SKT T1 in their masterful play can exploit a lower level team, and I'm trying to borrow some of that into my coaching of Winterfox.
Monty.
So yeah.
Okay, let's just get right into this, Monty. I want to ask you a question here, okay? You remember last week's show? You remember the Alpha Draft show as well? So KU beat CJ. That's fine. That's supposed to happen. Always thought KU was good. They're obviously very good now. And you know what happened, Monty? You know your beloved Jin Air team? They lost to that CJ team you said was bad. It was on the way down. Explain. Tell me your thoughts.
I was actually very surprised to see Jin Air lose that series. But I mean, we've had.
I guess they'll always be chasing that high from the beginning of the
Wait, they beat CJ like last week, dude. They 2-0'd CJ.
That was last week. This is now Monty. I want to take you like Diamondprox and explain to you what I read in the Eckhart Tolle book about the power of now. Like in the now, Monty, CJ beats Jin Air 2-0. 2-0. Clean, motherfucker. Clean. Cut him off. Body bag. It's over.
5 days after Jin Air 2-0'd them very cleanly.
Yep. Jin Air just taught them how to beat them.
The CJ Jin Air games were much closer. This set was much closer than the last one, where Jin Air kind of just put CJ in the dumpster. But whatever, we'll just ignore that.
Okay.
And the fact that Jin Air was winning game number one for like the first 40 minutes.
Well, they've got a bit of CLG in them. So what does this make you think about CJ though? Has CJ turned the corner?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Helper wasn't that good in his debut. I think that Jin Air did a lot to lose these games to themselves, because they had pretty large leads in both of the games that they played, and then they made some very bad team plays and sort of threw them. So I don't know. It's really hard. The problem with Korea right now is like SKT is really good, KU is really good, and then 3 through 6 is just a mess.
Leviathan, what do you think of CJ and Jin Air? Do you have any thoughts on them?
CJ's hit or miss for sure. I know they didn't pick up Alistair for a long time, which really hurt them. Yep. And they played I know they won with Alistair in the first game against Jenner, but I don't know how good of an Alistair Mad Life played. I know when he was playing
good.
He's only one of the best of all time. But yeah, aside from that.
But when he first picked it up after he didn't play it, it wasn't amazing.
Agreed, but he played very well in that game.
Okay, so that's good to see. And then maybe it's on the up and up for them. Checking their team compositions, their team compositions are in line with how I feel the game should be played.
Yeah, and Coco hard carried game 2. Like,
on that Twisted Fate?
Yeah, on the Twisted Fate. He fucked people up.
Yeah, no, I could see Twisted Fate being a very strong pick in this meta right now, or at least when you get the team composition that fits it, just because of how well you're able to influence the entire map with that pick. So yeah, it could be on the up and up for CJ, but they can just randomly lose a set to a team that they should beat. So
what about Jenner? What do you think of them?
I want them to be good.
That's how I feel.
I mean, I like watching them play. I think their picks sometimes go a bit wrong. I don't understand the Lucian pick in game 2. I think that could have been just a normal AD carry in this meta. But yeah, they're not hopeless. I don't think they're in the bottom set of the league. I think they can compete. It's just
Jenner 2 is like Trace has only played pretty much 2 champions this entire season, Rumble and Maokai, and they haven't looked good. Like, his Hecarim was a little shaky in that second game, so they may have some issues.
Yeah, I missed that set, so I can't comment too much on that. But yeah.
Monty, are you spitting out the Kool-Aid that Reapered spat into your mouth like you were a little baby bird about how Trace was secretly the best top player? You mentioned it on this show, Monty.
No. He thought Someday was, but
Someday, okay. Never mind.
And Someday actually is having a very
Forget
good
that
season.
then. Cut that off. Okay. Let me ask you this then, Monty. An opinion I don't think you mentioned on this show. You initially were hyping up Pilot at the beginning of the split, but don't you secretly think Jenner is the better... Captain Jack is the better Jenner AD carry, and they should just use him every game?
Well, he is right now, yeah. I like Pilot because I think he's a really good young talent. But yes, he was a bit rough around the edges. So I think it's smart to put in Captain Jack. They've been much more consistent. And that's the thing with Jenner is that they have to have a very consistent AD carry to win because their entire playstyle revolves around feeding their AD carry. So they're very AD carry centric team. So having a veteran like Captain Jack, I think, is helping them do better.
What do you think of GBM at the moment? Have you come down off him at all?
No, I think GBM is good. I don't know if he's the right style of player for Jenner. That's the main issue that
Who's
I have.
better, Coco or GBM?
Coco's better.
Okay, I think you in the past, Monty, you've said that like GBM was the second best mid laner in Korea, so that's
he is good, but,
right?
Well, he is good, but we have to understand GBM is very conservative as a player. He's got a very conservative play style. He tends to play back in lane. He doesn't die. He doesn't give up a lot of deaths, but he also isn't going to be like some sort of ultra super carry on your team. Yeah. He's very consistent and he's reliable, but like
GBM is the power of evil of Korea.
Okay, maybe a little bit. I think you can draw a comparison there. The problem is that Jenner doesn't have another major carry on that roster who could really have a breakout performance. So when they don't get Captain Jack rolling, it's not good.
Okay, what about another interesting matchup this week? Was last week when we were trying to figure out the mess of the Najin, CJ, Jinner, KT. It seemed like last week's results said, okay, well, finally you can sort of rule KT out. Like they're on the way out, they're gonna, and now they just beat Najin. So what do you make of that one, team?
Well, Peekaboo played really fucking well.
Why is he allowed to play? What is going wrong in this league that he is now allowed to be a starting player? There's something wrong here, Monty.
What? Why?
That's the joke. He was always a good player. He was never allowed on any team.
Okay. He's also... So the thing about Peekaboo is that he actually has a lot of synergy already with Arrow because they used to play together on Zenix Storm. And you could see that really coming back in this game. And he plays the map so well. Mechanically, he's brilliant. I don't know how much shot calling he's adding to the team, but it really looked a lot better. And that was another series that we had seen very recently also, the KT Najin, where it went reverse. It reversed into KT's favor this time. And they even played Edge again instead of Nagne. I don't really get why they're doing that, but there you go. And
I don't understand why
their shot calling was extremely good in that series.
What do you think of these two teams, Najin, KT, Leviathan?
I think they shouldn't be starting Edge over Nagne. I think Nagne is just the better player. I do like the performance of Someday.
Someday's having a great season.
Yeah, I really like how Someday's playing. I liked his Gnar in the first game. Just like I don't know, I haven't spent too much time breaking these guys down, so I can't have the expert analysis of these teams. But yeah, I like Someday and I like KT Rolster. I think KT Rolster can compete with CJ, and it should be exciting to see how KT Rolster plays in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that depending on how well Peekaboo does with his wrist injury and if he's capable of playing all their games, like Fixer's good, but Peekaboo is a much-needed playmaker on the KT Rolster team. Like that's really what they've always needed is more playmakers on the roster. And they're kind of getting that with Peekaboo, who can set up things and who can actually just straight up mechanically outplay people. So it's gonna be interesting to see where they go, because they started the season having really good shot calling and really good drafts, and then they sort of fell apart for a while and didn't have such great shot calling or drafts. But when they play around Someday and they get Someday ahead, he is a very brutal. He will snowball harder than any other top laner. Like, if you get him ahead, he will crush you.
The final of OGN Monty is going to be a rematch of last split.
Probably. I would say that's likely.
So, is SKT much like the Fnatic of this region in that they're just shitting on everyone?
I don't see a reason why they're going to stop. I don't. With the season Faker is having, if Faker cools down, then maybe. But with the way that Faker is playing right now, I don't think it's possible to beat them.
If Fnatic goes to Worlds and they face this SK Telecom, what do you think?
It's not going to be good for this Fnatic. Faker is playing at a much different level than he was at MSI.
Leviathan, what do you think? This Fnatic versus this SKT?
I don't know. I think SKT looks scary because they troll picked against Spenu and just outplayed them.
Okay, so what? So isn't Fnatic doing like the best of any Western team we've seen this year? Why can't they win?
Okay, that's another Thorin question.
Dude, you're the one who said that like Alliance could like make the fucking final or some shit before Worlds started.
Yeah, we also perfect game Naj and Shield.
Okay, congrats.
Thank you. I don't know. I think that we saw at MSI that Fnatic was able to take games off of SKT. But SKT looks way better than what they looked like at MSI. They're just running over LCK right now. They're able to troll pick and give the enemy Rise and pick Mundo into it and still beat them. So I think SKT has the edge, but I don't want to just completely rule out the West, especially Fnatic.
Why not?
Because I think Fnatic's coach is just really fucking good. And I think...
What do you think he's good at?
Okay, so I think from speaking with him and having a somewhat similar background as him with poker, I know how people coach poker, and it's a very good way to also coach people in League of Legends. Just because in poker, one of the easiest ways to coach is to do hand review and hand analysis. And you look at the hand and you go, okay, well, you bet this much here. Why? Is there a different amount you could bet? What sort of hands do you think he has when he bets in a certain way? And a lot of that carries over into League of Legends. Like, why did you move here? Where else could you have moved on the map? Where do you think your opponent's going to move? That sort of thing. And so that has to help his team some way in the map play. And he's a very responsible, well-spoken, it seems like he has his shit together sort of coach.
I bet him. It really does seem like he has his shit together. He's a smart guy.
Yeah, and I think just that plus his hard working and his understanding of just being able to how to be good at things probably helps his team a ton in how they prep for matches. So I think if they were able to go into a best of 5 against SKT, they wouldn't be underprepared. It would just be whether they could match the level of play. And I think SKT is currently a better team, but worse teams have won best of threes and best of fives against better teams before. So I think they have a fighting chance, but I would give the edge to SKT.
First of all, get real. No Western team has won a best of 5 against a Korean team, so
that's not true. CLG EU beat Najin, Sword in a best of 5 in Korea in 2012.
That was 3 years ago, mate.
Yes.
So one has 3 years ago.
So because it hasn't happened before, it'll never happen in the future.
I didn't say that. You said that worst teams have won best of 3s, so you're the one who's wrong, mate.
Yeah,
you're factually wrong. I'm just actually being a little bit harsh, I'm saying it. So
Unicorns of Love beat Gambit in the quarterfinals of the playoffs.
They were both shit, mate. Don't worry about it. That's a wash. I don't even care. No, I already told you Unicorns of Love was worse, but basically what they did was they didn't just fight you. At the beginning of the fight, they say like a kiss for good luck, and then they infect you with the poison, and you become like them, a decrepit, wretched creature, battling to even breathe and pump blood around your body as you scrap in the mud. And you thought before you were this glorious angelic creature from above, executing tactics from your mind, which became manifest into tangible things and forces pushed into this world. I bet you were thinking that before Pinoy picked fucking Urgot and locked it in, right?
I don't know. I'm just watching the game of League of Legends. That's pretty. That's pretty intense, man. I don't know.
I think we should just end on that note. That's the end of this week. Sadly, blame Monty. Blame whichever the one of us that has to go is. Might be me. Blame me if it is.
No, actually, I have to go. I got to coach Winterfox.
But sadly, because of that, there's going to be no NA section this week, and so the topic I know everyone wanted to be discussed. Whoever didn't decide this, one of us decided it. We'll have to talk about that next week.